Call to order, councillors. Please turn your mobile devices to silent. It is 9 a.m. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting on the 15th of April 2025. Council meetings are open to the public and live streamed to enable members of the public to observe Council in its decision-making process. It is a requirement that I advise all present at the meeting that the meeting is being live streamed, and I advise all that your presence at this meeting is being taken as consent that your image and your voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public by our lines of this meeting will remain on Council's website for at least 12 months. Any other form of audio and/or visual recording of the meeting requires prior permission. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Arthur Bain, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Ben Pakes, Councillor Adam Matchett, Deputy Mayor Julie Coburn, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Noel Selby, and Councillor Annette Lawrence. Staff attending today are Michael Jackson, Acting General Manager, Daniel Thorogood, Acting Director, Operations and Planning of Utilities, Lisa Davies, Acting Director, Corporate and Commercial, Vicky Thomas, Acting Group Manager, Governance and IT, Talia Randall, Governance Advisor, and Wayne Douglas, Group Manager, Corporate Performance. Welcome councillors, staff, our members of public in the gallery, and anybody watching the live stream. I now move to our opening prayer. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I wish to use the Lord's Prayer for our opening prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. We'll now move to our acknowledgement to country. Deputy Mayor Coburn.
Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Thungutty Dungutty Nation. We respect our elders past, present and emerging. We also like to acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Dungutty land.
Thank you. We now move to our acknowledgement of servicemen, women and their families. Councillor Bain.
Council acknowledges servicemen, servicewomen and their families from the frontier wars, South Africa, Gallipoli and Kokoda, from Longtan to Uruzgan and all other conflicts and humanitarian deployments. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. We now move to apologies and applications for leave. There are none. We now move to item 5, which is confirmation of minutes. And councillors, we have two versions of minutes that we have to move. So firstly, we'll have the confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting held on the 18th of March 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pakes, a seconder, Councillor Selby. Do we have any? Is there any dissent? There is none. I declare it carried. We now have the confirmation of minutes for the extraordinary meeting held on the 26th of March 2025. Do we have a mover? Councillor Saul, seconder, Councillor Coburn. Is there any dissent? There is none. I declare it carried. We now move to item 6, which is our disclosures of interest. Councillors, I now call for any disclosures of interest. There are none. We now move to items passed by exception. And there is a recommendation before you, councillors, with all of the items that we are to move by exception. Before we move the motion or take questions, do councillors want to remove any items so they may speak to them or vote against them? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to remove 10.4 Dementia Friendly Organisation, as I'd like to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Are there any other items to be removed, Councillor Wyatt?
I have some questions about Wigay, and I'll just take some advice whether they should be answered now or remove them. Sorry, I just can't find. I just got to find my notes. Yeah, thank you.
You may ask your questions now.
There's a few.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks. All right. So yep, 10.5, and I just want to know, so there's a statement there that says rates and charges on the park are around $2,586. What are those rates and charges? Or are they actual rates?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. That figure represents the rate which applies to that land, so your property rates, as well as garbage and stormwater charges that are charged to that land.
And who's paying those now?
Council currently pays those to itself.
Okay. And the water, and including the water?
Yes, including the water.
Okay. And so the water there is large, from 156 to almost 6,500.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, there's probably, I could only speculate as to why the large historical usage bills. So that was looking back over the lifetime essentially of billing at that park. So I would assume that it would either relate to when there was reasonably intensive activities being undertaken at the park, or potentially there could have been some water theft from the park. They're the two scenarios that I could think of that could result in a bill of that size.
Microphone, please, Councillor White.
So it's going under Wigay management, and there's a management agreement or lease of some sort being prepared. Will Wigay be paying those rates and fees now?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so as detailed in the report, the actual details of a lease have not been negotiated yet, but Council's policy on leases of its land are that the lessee does pay the outgoings on the land. So under the usual policy that could be approved, those charges would be paid by Wigay. If the group was looking for a concession on that, then a report would need to come to Council and Council would need to resolve that way.
And that situation is still being negotiated and under confidentiality, I assume, at the moment.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, correct. We're still working with the group on precisely what a lease over that land might look like.
Thank you. And just a question about the infrastructure there, because it's, even when it goes into lease, it's still owned by council. Is it then eligible for some type of solar program, energy renewable program like other buildings in the Shire?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, this is similar to how we've responded to this about things like the holiday parks in the past. So yes, as council properties and council assets, we could certainly consider solar on those assets. In this particular case, for two reasons, it would be unattractive for that sort of project. The first one is its usage is minimal. It's essentially lighting only. Most of the fees are access charges that we would still incur even with solar. Secondly, would be if the lessee was paying the electricity bills, then there would be no financial advantage to council in putting solar on that property. We'd instead target that expenditure on ones where we did have a positive financial return.
Okay, thank you. And the those bottom blocks, just on the diagram there, there's a whole lot of yellow ones, which I assume is the Wigay lease. And are those other ones there? I can't read it, it's a bit too small, but there's 5 blocks there. Are they also the Crown, also council land?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So the 5 blocks adjoining C Street to the south of the drain are council's land, and they are currently leased to an external party.
4?
No, there's 5 blocks. There's 2 that.
No, sorry.
Sorry.
FORY. What are they leased for?
Look, I don't think I can disclose in a public meeting who the lessee is, but they are leased to a community group for their purposes in accordance with our policies.
Okay. And so there's some type of lease arrangement over that land ongoing? Through
you, Madam Mayor, yes, there is a lease over that property.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Do we have any other questions on any of the other items? So Councillor Coburn.
Yeah, the only other question that I had was around the development application for the installation of a new depot. I just want to ask that councillors be sent a copy of the master plan for the depot master plan, so that we have an understanding of when that was instigated and what it actually entails.
Mr. General Manager.
Yes, certainly. Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, certainly we can arrange for that to occur.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any other questions on the items before you? Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager. Yeah, and probably an extension of that is if there's any budgeting associated to that master plan for that works depot upgrade.
Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's a master plan. So at the moment, the projects will be put in one by one into the operational plan as they come up. So in terms of overall cost, it's over a long period of time. So it hasn't been costed out in detail.
Yes. So just to clarify that response through you, Madam Mayor, that the only project on that master plan that is costed is the DA that's approved.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, the master plan's being implemented in a staged manner, looking at available budgets and obviously conscious of the financial sustainability of council. So we'll be addressing each item as they come up and working through the details and working through more cost-effective ways to deliver each element as they come up.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillors, we have a recommendation before you that the following items be adopted by exception. Do we have a mover? Councillor Saul, do we have a seconder? Councillor Matchett, is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We now move to item 10.1, which is the draft integrated and planning reporting suite of documents. This is a very large and important item. Do we have a mover? Councillor Saul, do we have a seconder? Councillor Bain. Councillor Saul, would you like to open debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as the councillors and the public realise, every year we must put on exhibition for the community to read and understand. So we would hope they take the time to read the documents. The documents do come back to council before May and June, and to allow us to reconsider submissions if there are any. I hope there can be some, but in past years there's been very few. So I just urge the community to take the time to read the document, understand what's happening, and if they feel strongly, make some submissions. So, Madam Mayor, it's now out into the community hands. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. I'll firstly be taking questions on this, and then we will move into any debate. We can do this kind of systematically, as I know councillors might have multiple questions on different items, so we can move through the delivery program long-term sequentially through how they're listed within the business paper. Are councillors okay with that? So we might jump to the delivery program 2025 to 2029 if there's any questions on that.
Start.
Yeah, Councillor Matchett.
I think in previous meetings, there's been interest expressed in providing more synthesized plans that are, I guess, a little bit more palatable for the general community, because I think it's important that these are full of detail, but I think a lot of the key messages can sometimes get lost in the wash. Is that a possibility for future plans of this nature to provide sort of one-pager sort of summaries? Is that possible?
Yeah,
Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think we're always looking to improve these documents. They are a complicated set of documents, and the delivery program being a 4-year program, you know, linking through up and down through the community strategic plan and then down into the operational plan and the other plans relating to it. So yeah, the team are always looking at best practice. There's a whole network of IPNR specialists across all New South Wales councils who get together and really try and nut out the best way, and there are many ways, the best way to deliver these documents for the community to understand. So we'll keep working on those every year. Probably not the delivery program because we'll leave that one, but the whole suite of documents is essentially constantly under review, and there's we'll certainly be looking at different ways to deliver the information.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, please. Just on the, oh, hang on, sorry. I'm just looking at the major projects. The biodiversity strategy was approved in 2022. What is the trigger for this renewal in 2 years later? Is it legislative data, all actions completed? What's a trigger for renewal?
Mr. Jackson.
I'll need to look into the specifics of that, but I understand that the actual document is due to be reviewed. I'll pass to Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, you'll see that it's actually got some more detail on page 25 of the delivery program. So that strategy that was updated in 2022 is due to be reviewed and updated during this term of council. So that is the work that will be undertaken.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
Of our strategies are 4-year strategies to be aligned to a term of council. So quite a number of the strategies that we adopt are looking at that time frame. But certainly the questions you ask are all relevant. There have been changes in legislation recently in that space. There are also changes. I think council has been briefed on some of the changes in the data that we have collected in that space. And certainly there have been changes in what is considered, I guess, to be good practice and best practice in that space. So it's definitely an emerging, I shouldn't say emerging, but it's well and truly emerged, but certainly an area which is subject to change. But yeah, a lot of our strategies are designed to be a 4-year strategy around that term of council. So it's not unusual for these documents to be reviewed on that type of time frame.
As part of the review process, do you conduct an evaluation and an improvement review on a previous plan? So how the actions were implemented, what worked well, what didn't work well, evaluate the outcomes, achievements, etc.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Certainly lessons learnt are something that always are an input into the next stage of a project. And even when you do different strategies and so on, that you always have a lessons learnt exercise and pass them into the new work that you do. So yeah, no doubt that there will be lessons learnt feed into that process, but that is starting to get probably into some of the implementation detail, which is subject to change depending on what the final project plan of that review looks like.
I mean, I didn't look up the strategy for this, but I certainly remember approving it when we were on council, and I can't remember how many actions were there. It would be good to see as part of a renewal processes how many of those actions were complete, and if there's any, what are some of the positive outcomes?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
You're going to answer that question?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, happy to provide councillors with an update. There was one in the councillor update just recently, but we can provide more detail on those actions. Like a lot of these plans, many of the actions in the biodiversity strategy did seek grant funding, so not all of those will have been funded over the term of the strategy. But yeah, we can certainly revisit. I think the team was actually keen to get a bit more detail on that previous update anyway, so I'm sure they'd be happy to provide a further update on the specific actions that are in the plan.
Yeah.
Here's a question.
Yes, please. So my same set of questions, but I've got the answer. Is for these the disability inclusion action plan is also on that list, which was approved during last term, and same with the reconciliation action plan, also approved in the last term. I've got the answer about the triggers, but the end part of the renewal process, it says there's something like that the disability inclusion and action plan may not be fit for purpose, which is a bit of an alarm if the previous one wasn't fit for purpose. What would be an example of not fit for purpose anymore for that plan? Because it's mentioned in relation to that plan. Or is it just, yeah.
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, as was explained, Councillor Wyatt, the Disability Inclusion Action Plan is a similar 4-year plan. So it is due to conclude in 2025. I think the statement around it not being fit for purpose is around some of those learnings that have been undertaken through the course of the delivery of that actual plan and what we would potentially do differently in the development of a new plan. So obviously similar to the strategy that was just discussed, there will be a wrap-up process for that particular plan. In presenting, I guess, a new draft to council and the community, we would look to outline some of the lessons learned and the achievements that have occurred through that period, and also obviously those areas where we feel we haven't hit the mark and what we're going to do better next time or how we'll do that differently.
Yeah.
Yep. How many questions do you have? Because I just want to make sure we're going to move around because other councillors.
I've just got a question on Tozer Road, and then just a follow-up question to that. Is that right?
Awesome.
Yeah. My follow-up question to that is a strategic plan that is only on display for only kind of valid for 4 years. It seems like very heavy on strategic planning, and no wonder resources are stretched, because it seems like you're just constantly moving through this strategic planning. And if that's a requirement of the Office of Local Government, are you aware in any of the circles that you all move in, is there an appetite for change? Because that seems like we're talking about savings and productivity. That's one where those strategies should be 5 to 10 years, not have to be redone every 4 years. Like, is there any appetite for amending those processes that you're aware of?
Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Certainly there are discussions around the lifespan of certain documents. I know we've discussed, our DCP and our LEP have been around a lot longer than 10 years, and they've had minor updates along the way, but are essentially the same documents that they were all those years ago. These documents, look, there's a lot of work goes into some of these areas, and they are constantly evolving. Disability action and reconciliation are two areas that really have been evolving quite quickly. So essentially, yes, there are ways we could hold off on doing these projects. We just fall further behind, and obviously we've got an obligation to look at these and take these areas very seriously. So we have to weigh that up, whether or not we want to fall behind or not.
Thank you. I might sort of consider that later, because I'm sort of just agreeing to what Councillor Matchett said about plans on page. And the Toos Road, can you just outline the management arrangement between state and local government? My understanding that is fully funded by the state under the National Disaster Recovery, and it's not costing us a cent, and the resources nothing. Is that true?
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, we've received grant funding of over $20 million towards that project. The project that should be, by all cost estimates, fully funded by the state and federal government through the disaster recovery arrangements that flow through from the federal to state. So there should be no cost to council on that.
And so is the state government also leading the project management deliverables, the stakeholder consultation, the planning, approvals and consent?
Mr. Jackson?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, this is being managed by council. So we have staff and contractors delivering these projects, that project in particular.
Sorry, just on that then, can you actually then claim those staff hours and wages back against the state government?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the deeds are quite clear that we can recover staff time on these projects.
Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 3 questions. One is on the regarding the 5 Headlands Walk. Is part of the costings of that including weed management and bush regeneration? Because I was speaking to a resident who works with June Care, and he was saying that the path of the 5 Headlands Walk is a lot of lantana and bidu bush. So is that going to be part of the 5 Headlands Walk process? Is that budgeted in?
Mr. Jackson?
Weed management is not specifically included in the budget for that project. However, we do a lot of work in our weed management programs and are targeting areas associated with that path. Obviously, the access being provided by getting in, by creating those paths, is allowing us to access those areas and be more effective in weed management there. So it's a symbiotic relationship there to make the most of our spend.
Thank you for that. The second question is around the environment. I noticed that one of the programs is looking at a new landfill cell, and I know we've just opened cell 4 recently. So is this like the forward planning of getting in place for when the cell that we've just opened is going to be needing to be replaced? Are we forward planning that, and what sort of time frame is that looking at? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Initially, and I will pass over to Director Trotter shortly. Yes, the cells are interlinked. So cell 5 is actually quite heavily interlinked in design terms with cell 4. So I think Director Trotter can get more into the timeframes, but there will be very direct and soon connection between those two projects.
Mr. Trotter.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So cell 5 is basically the completion of cell 4, the way it's designed. So basically cell 4 and 5 an L shape once completed. At the moment, cell 4 is just a long straight cell. So basically it was done in those stages basically for the filling because basically 4 can't be filled if 5 was complete. So we have to fill to a certain stage and basically build a road back out of 4 with compacted waste. And once we can enter that cell from the top and exit from the top, then we can complete 5 and then fill the whole lot up together. Yeah.
So what sort of time frame are we looking at? Like what period are we looking at?
So it's a little bit how long's a piece of string, because it depends how much waste we actually get in. Projections on what we're receiving at the moment, it looks like around that 18-month period.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. Good forward planning. And the last question is around leadership, with looking at the improving the customer experience, and it's a question I've asked on a number of occasions. Is there going to be any process involved in this of automating the provision of a customer reference number? Because at the moment it's a little bit clunky, and I find that the customer reference number is a really effective way of keeping track of the jobs and customer service.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In relation to that actually requires replacement of one of the two systems that we use for managing customer requests. Internally, we're currently considering our forthcoming IT strategy, and a review of those systems is included provisionally at the moment in the second year of that strategy. So when that review is conducted, then we will have some clarity on whether we're going to look to replace either of those systems.
Thank you. Are there any more questions on the delivery program, councillors? Councillor Coburn.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I just had one, I have a number of questions. In economy, I was just looking at the notes under the investment in the Macleay Valley Holiday Coast Parks. And there's a note in there that given council's financial sustainability challenges, it should be noted that these assets are income generating, and this financial commitment from council does not impact council's general fund. My question is, I know that the Macleay Valley Holiday Park income is ring fenced, but that does sit under the general fund, doesn't it?
Mr. Douglas.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, you're right there, Councillor Coburn. I think the wording is probably a little bit inaccurate in terms of, I think it's trying to say that it doesn't affect the general rates, that the investment in the holiday parks is not funded by the ratepayer. It's funded by the return of revenue from those parks. So I think it should probably say general rates as opposed to general fund.
Thank you for that clarification. Sorry, just let me scroll down through the document. I did have a question around, this is in community, objective 32, around our community has access to facilities and services that will improve their quality of life. I note there that there's a provision about providing and maintaining community halls and facilities to meet community needs. In this 4-year plan, I don't know if there is an existing plan around the maintenance and control of public halls. If there isn't one, will this trigger some sort of actual action plan around what council's intention are with these assets?
Ms. Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we are currently in the process of looking at all of our community halls, and we have been doing quite a bit of work with our Section 355 committees that manage a lot of those facilities. It is a challenge, obviously, the maintenance and upkeep of those facilities, noting that they generate very little income. But we are certainly working at the moment, having had a number of issues at some facilities, to try and do an overarching assessment so that we can better plan for maintenance and potential improvements in some instances for those facilities, to have a better understanding of exactly what costs will be involved, what funds are actually available as a result of income from those community facilities, and how do we actually fund the gap. So yes, certainly there is planning underway in that regard that will continue, for the duration of this plan.
And just a further question to that, will that also include some community engagement around those specific assets? I don't know which ones of those are actually heritage listed, if any, but whether or not they are still fit for purpose, and does community still want to be able to access those facilities?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, certainly we do have some heritage implications for at least one facility that comes to mind. So that obviously is a component in that consideration. In terms of engagement, at the moment, the engagement is primarily focused on the committee that has the management responsibility and the information that we receive through them. If we were looking at broader prioritisation and planning, then yes, potentially there would be broader community engagement, but we haven't set a plan in place for that at this stage.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll just scroll down. Do
we have any other questions? Well, Councillor Pakes.
Sorry, just another question.
Sorry, I did go to Councillor Pakes. I'll come back to you when you're ready. Councillor Pakes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies, Councillor Coburn. I didn't mean to take your spot. My question is around the economic focus area, and previous councils have had an economic focus around rural industries and agriculture, and I am searching this and looking at this and wondering how that's represented in this document, given that we operate and are upgrading, and our sale yards is going to be one of the best on the East Coast. It seems to be the only focus area or economic area that's listed, but it doesn't really list the farming as being a business and something that's very important to the Macleay. Previous councils have had the Macleay Valley Food Bowl. There's been other things occurring, but that seems to have slipped off the radar. Is there an explanation for that?
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Certainly, Councillor Pakes, the wording in the document is not intended to downplay the importance of agriculture and businesses associated with agriculture locally. Perhaps that is something that we could look at through the engagement period on the document around whether we need to amend some of that wording. You will see, and obviously it goes to the fact that this is a higher level plan, that often it does frame local businesses collectively rather than segmenting into specific industry sectors, but I'm certainly happy to take that on board for something that we can review.
Yeah, specifically, I suppose that the business chamber does represent local business in that commercial area, and I would say the rural area is a separate set of circumstances, totally reliant on the weather, totally reliant on external forces. So I think we should be recognising one of the largest industries in our valley, and actually showing them the appreciation that we put them in our long-term plan, because to me it feels like it slipped off the radar, and I would hope.
You're going to need to frame that as a question, Councillor Pakes.
I could ask the General Manager and his executive leadership team to include that, because I feel it's a gaping omission at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Coburn, back to you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Implementing council's arts and culture plan, and I know this is a very important aspect for community. I guess through this term, will we be able to have a clear focus on what will be our major facility that will be able to actually be available to implement this actual plan? I know we have the Slim Dusty Centre, we have the Bandbox Theatre. Will we have a clear vision around what's going to be our performing arts centre, if you like?
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I would need to go back and have a look at the actual plan itself, Councillor Coburn, just to clarify, I guess, in response to your question. I don't recall from memory that we have set an objective to have a particular focus on a particular facility. The plan itself is broken into a range of focus and priority areas, and generally, because we do have multiple community assets, it is about ensuring that we can support them in various ways. So obviously you may see different types of performances or activities at Bandbox to what you would at the Slim Dusty Centre. So I don't believe that there's going to be a clearer articulation as such, but I'm happy to take that on notice and have a further look at the detail in the plan in coming years.
Councillor Lawrence and then Councillor Pakes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm just looking at page 33 on the focus areas of the community delivery program, and I just wanted to say it's great to see that the review of the reconciliation action plans on there, and I just wanted to ask what sort of approach is that going to entail?
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Lawrence, we haven't defined that approach as yet. We have set that obviously as an objective within the plan. It is something that we would see as a key discussion with the First Nations Advisory Group that we're looking to establish.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. My question's similar to Councillor Wyatt's in regards to the Macleay Valley Sports Strategy. It's a 2017 document. The details in it are well and truly dated. Many of the actions in it have been executed, but some have not been. When will that be reviewed as part of, this is obviously part of this document. Is there a review process for, have we got a standardised review process? Because I'm probably asking for us, like Councillor Wyatt says that she's got a document that's 4 years old, and I've got one that's 2017, it's nearly 10 years old.
Mr Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Essentially, the sports strategy is still very much in the implementation phase. So we can certainly have a look at emerging trends and look at the status of the various items within that strategy. But at this point in time, I just need to check. I don't think we've. It was 2017. So we'll review where that strategy is up to, and if councils have a mind to request an earlier update of that than's currently sort of set out, then obviously we can, we need to devote resources to that, so we can put that on the list for council to consider where those priorities lie.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Do you have another question, Councillor Pakes?
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, is there a potential for efficiencies to be found with better documentation? Because a 10-year-old document, which will say 8-year-old document, has, staff seeking feedback from organisations which didn't exist 10 years ago or 8 years ago for new projects that weren't even needed back then. There's an efficiency here that requires staff not to do the work. Is that something you're seeing, or am I the only one seeing that?
Mr Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as I said, we've been working through delivering on the projects within that strategy for the past period, and essentially it is a lot of work to go through a consultation period. So certainly if council elects to devote that sort of resource to engage with all of those sporting groups again, reconfirm all of their matters and work through that process on the various parts, then obviously we can do so. But at this point in time, we're taking it project by project, because certainly once it is only a master plan or a strategy, so a strategy then needs to translate into actions. And we've been running through different sporting fields, creating specific master plans for each sporting fields. We've only adopted a couple quite recently, and we've still got the Southwest Rocks Centre master plan to come back to. So we're still working through developing the next level of documentation under that original strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Yes, Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, and I suppose that's specifically what's in that Macleay Valley Sports Strategy. It actually has a strategy to make refined approaches to the sporting community, and it hasn't been adopted yet. Being a Macleay Valley Sports Council, is that something that a 355 committee may find an efficiency for council?
Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor. At this point in time, we'd need to have a look at what's involved, but a sporting council per se is really up to those sports groups and whether or not there is efficiency in having a council run organisation as opposed to a group which can lobby and act and advocate. There we go. Advocate on behalf of the sports groups directly rather than sitting within council structures.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I have a question regarding our draft delivery program. It obviously outlines the next 4 years and a lot of major projects. And within those major projects, we're making some pretty significant investments in water infrastructure. And we've also got things like the Tozer Road landslip. Would you say that these kinds of projects are, I guess, once in a generation and are adding significantly to that 4-year program in terms of budgeting and delivery?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, Tozer Road is a particular item in a response to a particular circumstance, so probably I'd exclude that one from that statement. But the water and sewer infrastructure is very much generational. They're very big projects that will have an ongoing effect and impact on both ratepayers from a rating side of things, but also from quality of life, health, and environmental standards being met through the massive upgrades to that infrastructure.
Thank you. And that will lead us into our long-term financial plan. And how are we making sure that these kinds of investments have intergenerational equity and are being spread across not just this term of council, but future?
Pass to Mr. Douglas.
Mr. Douglas.
So the concept of intergenerational equity is effectively saying that all generations pay a certain contribution to any new assets or renewal of assets, so that people are not unfairly charged for assets they may not use in this lifetime, or people that aren't paying for rates at this point in time will pay for them when they become of an age where they have a property and pay rates. So intergenerational equity is a mechanism that's definitely used for very expensive assets that have a long lifespan in order to dilute the burden across those generations.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. We also have the fantastic Mr. Trotter, who's great at securing lots of grants to help with that investment. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We're still on I'm on the leadership focus area of the document, and I'm looking at the long-term financial plan as part of it, but also the financial sustainability strategy as part of it. And I probably wanted a comment from the General Manager around the changes to the financial sustainability program between last year and this year, or sorry, the draft for this year and the year going forward and the year we're just in, and what and how that's changed.
Mr. Jackson or Mr. Douglas.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Pakes, the conversations we've had with the Revenue Task Force and reviewing the the benefits out of the current financial sustainability program clearly showed that there were some of those initiatives that were under investigation for sort of the commercial areas of our business that have been conducted and may not be reaping many benefits out of that. So, for instance, the airport feasibility, etc., the Slim Dusty review, where there were marginal savings identified, but nothing that's going to change the needle on our overall deficit forecast. So the revised strategy is looking at initially the first item in that strategy is looking at in terms of our quarterly budget review focus, where we can remove budget, defer projects, contain spend as much as we can. The second one there also focuses on looking at our sort of high value, sort of high risk spend and monitoring that and then trying to control and keep that under wraps. So the plan has basically been revised to focus on very short term, very frequent and regular monitoring and cost reduction initiatives. And then it's broken down a little bit further into those initiatives that are going to take maybe longer term to realize benefits, but also they may come at productivity and or efficiency savings, which are difficult to measure at a bottom line level. But the main focus in those top two initiatives that I was talking about is also strategies to secure as much grant funding as we can for budget items that are existing in our program. So not for new assets or trying to create something that we were never planning to do, but to subsidize the general revenue with state or federal funding. If we can do this, it'll mean that it'll be less pressure on us having to take out borrowings, which in turn is less interest on those borrowings, which in turn helps to reduce the deficit. So that's the major differences between the last financial sustainability program and this one.
Councillor Pakes.
The differences I see from what I'm looking at, we had, what was it, 16
Councillor
points.
Pakes, I'm just wary that you're kind of slipping into debate with a staff member. You need to make sure that you're asking questions.
Question of relevance, Madam Mayor. Can I ask and frame the question in relevance to the previous financial sustainability?
Yeah, I'm just letting you know that you aren't here to argue with staff members. You're here to seek information. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that when you're reframing your question.
The information I'm seeking, through you, Madam Mayor, the information I'm seeking is the difference between the 16-point plan of the previous financial sustainability strategy, which had items not delivered till the end of this financial year, versus what I think is a reduced financial sustainability outcome. Given that we have a financial sustainability focus, should this not be something we're expanding, not reducing, being more ambitious in?
Okay, so then through you, Madam Mayor, some of the items in the currently adopted financial sustainability program have become sort of business as usual, and it's just part of what we're doing, like improved budgeting and forecasting, etc. Some of the other items that won't be complete by the end of this year have been incorporated into the revised sustainability strategy, financial sustainability strategy, and then some items are actually just included in the operational plan as well, and therefore not duplicated in both the operational plan and the strategy. So if you look at that third table, some of those items are in the operational plan and some of them are business as usual, but they're all being worked on.
So just clarify the third table.
Clarify it in what sense? In the financial sustainability program,
It's on page 26. There's an item called previous FSP initiatives that are now part of normal business operations. It's got a grey heading. I believe 26 of the long-term financial plan.
26. Yeah.
So specifically number 13 of this year's, striving to deliver better practices through the fleet management, etc. Where does that fall into in those points?
The fleet management one is expected to be completed this year with the introduction of the GPS, and the monitoring of that will be just ongoing.
Yep, so that will become business as usual to use that technology.
But it's not noted in this table, is it? Like, that's the question I'm asking. It's not in this table anywhere.
We can add that. We can add that in as a point 10 to say that the monitoring of GPS is going to be part of normal business.
Yeah.
But it was a project, and the project has been delivered. It's being delivered now.
I suppose then my question through you, Madam Mayor, is that any items that aren't delivered out of those 16 points should be absolutely noted, because previous councils had passed them. And if they aren't delivered, or they are delivering something, that we note them in this area, because financial sustainability is a number one priority. We absolutely should be doing this as a priority. Can that happen?
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, certainly we can make sure. I believe this table was an attempt to do that, but if that's not sufficient, we can take some comments and look at improving the table to provide a more comprehensive response.
Yeah. Further to that, the draft is set at a point in time where the expectation of certain initiatives is that they're completed and won't roll over. If between now and the final we find that some of those initiatives haven't been completed by year end, then they'll be incorporated as rollover items in here, in the same way as operational plan items that may not be in the draft because they're expected to be finished by the end of the year. If by the end of the year they're not completely finished, then they'll roll over into the next operational plan. So there's a 3-month window that we're not sure of what is exactly going to be completed by year end.
And I suppose the final part, where does the Revenue and Review Task Force fit into that?
Revenue and Review Task Force is a decision we've made in the Financial Sustainability Steering Committee to discuss with the CEO when he comes on as part of his onboarding, noting that it's on hold at the moment.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions on the long-term financial plan? No, we'll move to the Strategic Asset Management Plan. Councillor Wyatt, do you have a...
I have comments, not so much of a question. We're going to be able to talk this later?
Yeah, you will be able to talk to it later, but I was under the impression we might have had a few questions on all of the items. So if there's no more questions, then we can move to...
I'm okay with that. I don't have any questions.
All right, we can move to the Workforce Management Plan. No, operational.
I do, sorry. I do.
Councillor Wyatt.
I do on that one, sorry. Just let me find my notes. Yeah, I do have one on there. Where does the workforce work planning and allocating of workers to work and jobs occur?
Through you, Madam Mayor, essentially at a business unit level, the various managers and coordinators will work through what is required to deliver the program of works that's been agreed or proposed. And essentially that's then if there are any vacancies occur through attrition, then that is brought through to ELT to review whether or not we do replace each role as it comes up. So it's not a default that we backfill every role that becomes vacant. That essentially, yes, the work groups will go through and determine what resources they need to deliver the projects that they projects and tasks that they have to do based on their workloads, and they need to demonstrate that.
Okay, thank you for that. So I've raised this a few times, allocating resources in a work, just the allocation of resources. So how do you know when there is too much work and not enough staff? Like especially in terms of a natural disaster or an unplanned event. Let's ask one question at a time. So how do you know that there is too much work and not enough staff? And so how do you cater for unplanned events?
Through you, Madam Mayor, essentially we don't allocate resources to an unplanned bucket. So we have our staff working to essentially the known capacity. Again, the various department managers and coordinators will go through and understand what resourcing they have, what those people can achieve, and looking at previous years to make sure that that actually has been achieved and the budgets have been spent, or the hours of the products have been delivered, the service has been delivered, and in that way they'll know how their resourcing fits with the workload. And then when there is an unplanned event, such as a natural disaster, essentially we look at who needs to respond to that, and then look at the tasks that they should be doing as their daily work, or the projects that they're assigned to, and look at whether or not those projects need to be delayed or can be caught up or can be resourced in other ways.
Is that how the local government sector works right across the sector, so that when there are unplanned events, plagues, fire, floods, cyclones, that's how it works? So because that goes to my next question around, we talk about an economic opportunity cost of what happens if we take resource money from here and put it here. We're not doing that. Same thing applies for staff. If your resources are fully allocated, an unplanned event happens, that is an opportunity cost, and that what is not going to be delivered. So is that how the local government sector works? Because to me, that seems like there's always going to be an undelivered component of the work every year.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Predominantly, yes, that is how the sector works. Obviously, there's larger, wealthier councils who can afford to put more resource into some of the emergency preparedness type tasks, such as some councils actually have a full-time position for the local emergency management officer, and some have several positions in that field. But at a council of this scale, we've had periods where there's been almost a year with no disaster. So, we take that as a bonus and get on with the work. But yes, certainly of late, there's definitely a risk, and we just don't know, and thus we can't really budget whether we get one small disaster or 15 big disasters in a year. So we just can't allocate the resources and have them sitting around. It's just an expense that a council of this size and in our position can't afford.
I actually think that that's a fault of not the council, but it's a fault of process for local governments, and I would think that is a really high risk, because we don't anyway, that's just a comment. So my question then is, are staff wages claimable through a natural disaster?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it depends if it's declared. So it has to have been declared. So a lot of preparatory work that we did, this latest ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, we had a lot of warning, and there was, basically a week to prepare. The works that we did in that respect were not able to be claimed. And also in particular staff wages and things, there are restrictions as to you need to demonstrate that it's not their normal working day. So if a staff member is just devoted to doing that during their normal working day, it's not claimable. Whereas if they're putting on specific overtime relating to the disaster, then that is claimable. So it's a confusing area, and it's not particularly fair, because obviously they're going to be working on this 24, for a week. But if they're not doing it in overtime situations, it's unclaimable. So we lose a week of productivity. Yeah.
It's very contrary to a system that I'm familiar with from a state government perspective. So, do you have a backup plan of a casual pool of staff for backfilling when staff are dealing with unplanned events?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it very much depends on the roles that we're talking about. Certainly, in terms of labouring and operators, etc., will be able to use access a pool of people. However, they may also be working in other areas because there's a natural disaster on. So the labour pool is definitely not infinite, and we may not be able to access those people because they themselves may be impacted by the disaster, or we may lose other staff. You know, the staff who might just be cut off when the schools go down. We lose staff who need to look after caring arrangements, etc. So effectively, there's an impact right across the board, and it may be quite unexpected where you lose somebody, and you may not be able to backfill that role.
Yeah, thanks. As I mentioned, I think that's raised a few extra questions, which I'll deal with later. But in terms of those projects, like the big sewer and water and waste projects that are coming up, I'm assuming that there's more staff are employed to deliver those, because you can factor that in, and these would be temporary short-term contracts to deliver those projects.
Yeah,
so that's not affecting the current pool of staff.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, large capital works are good because effectively you can claim resources towards the delivery of those capital works. So the sewer program, it is a program. It's not just a few projects. It's quite a large and weighty program. So we've got program management, we've got consultancy support, as well as in-house or contracted resources who are brought on for the period. Whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, because of the nature of that program and how long it is and how it is mapped out. There's definitely a workflow there, but yes, very few of those resources would be permanent resources, and the majority are going to be contracted resources. Yep.
Councillor Lawrence, do you have a question?
Oh, yep, I just had to go back to it. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just had a question around the challenges in recruiting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees on page 14. I just wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges that's noted there?
Mr. Jackson.
Ms. Davies.
I can commence perhaps. There are a few issues around that. In some instance, it is actually illegal to be discriminatory in hiring, so you actually have to seek a dispensation to actually positively discriminate in a hiring situation. So that in itself is a process. And then there is, some other, just essentially getting people in the door who are suitable for the task and up to the program. But obviously we offer a lot of training and traineeships, etc., to get people through the door. But it's just hard to get the right numbers of people, or get numbers of people through, suitable candidates. And Ms. Davies, is there any other factors on that? That's pretty much it. Yeah. So positive discrimination is actually needs to be an exemption under regulations and law. So that in itself is a little complex.
Yeah, just a follow-up question. So in terms of collaborating with employment agencies, has that been done in the past in community?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we've certainly worked with various organisations here. Yeah, the AES is one of them to try and access those pools of people and get them through the door.
And one more follow-up question, just around the First Nations advisory. Would that potentially come to the committee around discussing other ways on how we can build the workforce?
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly that's a discussion. That's the sort of thing that we will work through in defining the terms of reference for that group.
Councillor Coburn.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just a note or a question, I have around the workforce management plan. It's identified in here that over our term in council, there's projected that 31 employees will retire. Now, I note in there that the next sentence that follows on from that is that council continues to focus on building the number of apprentices, trainees and cadets as part of a Grow Your Own, and I appreciate that as a positive step forward in growing the right people. I just wanted to ask, when I look at particularly the gender imbalance, if you like, within council, and then we look at the breakdown of employment status, is there something embedded within the HR policy that also offers staff, particularly those that are in part-time roles or casual roles, the opportunity to step up into the vacated permanent roles as part of their own development? Is that something embedded in a HR policy anywhere?
Mr. Jackson.
I think council has a practice of allowing for secondments or acting roles. So if somebody's stepped out, recruitment does take a while. So people in the positions below can take the acting roles while the recruitment process can be undertaken, which can be several months by the time you get through notice periods and advertising periods, etc. So there's certainly the opportunity for various staff to act in roles to gain experience, which they can then demonstrate their skills and aptitude for those roles. And essentially there's a fair amount of flexibility with regard to working arrangements, hours of work, etc., which is possible through our policies. So hopefully we are supporting a more diverse workforce and giving them opportunities along the way. Yep.
So does council currently have within the HR policy a process of expression of interest for people who are prepared to step up into those backfill roles? So you have a pool of existing resource there? Mr. Jackson.
We predominantly run expressions of interest on an as-needs basis, so we don't have a pool per se because, the roles are pretty diverse, and so we run it on an as-needs basis. People can lodge an interest, so there is a process to do that, just in general, in employment opportunities and progression within council. But for most roles, we need to advertise them. Either it can be done internally only, or internal and external, and it can be an expression of interest, particularly for secondments or acting arrangements.
Thank you. We'll now move to the Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm specifically on that question of 31 employees retiring. You've got a stated number of 20 trainees and apprentices and cadets will be in or are in position as of March 25. Is there an opportunity to increase that number to fill from the bottom up in the workforce? That's the first question. The second question is probably along the same line as a diverse range of skills. What's in this document? How, particularly at the hands-on stage of council staff, is there an opening to allow staff to be more broadly trained to do more different skills at the service delivery on the ground level?
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the cadets and apprentices, we're trying to get as many of those as we can. There's various funding opportunities which we're taking advantage of. I think that in the most recent round, we've just got 7 new apprentice or cadet roles. So it really just comes down to how we can effectively manage and provide the right mentoring and training for those staff. At the end of the day, having an inexperienced person in, you've got to provide a level of training and supervision which does impact the other crews. But obviously, we've demonstrated a real want to get those people in. But by the same token, we can't just load up existing staff mentoring those people beyond their capacity. So we've got to be careful on that. But we're certainly looking for further opportunities and would take advantage of funding if it became available. In terms of, the second part, a lot of those apprenticeships do involve moving around areas within, and cadetships do involve moving around within the organisation to gain a flavour. You can be an engineer, but you can be out in the construction side, you can be on the design side, survey side, many projects side. So there's a lot of different parts to any particular cadetship or traineeship, and we do try to circulate the staff through those different areas across their usually two years in the role. They might do 6 months in various sections, and I know the various trades and things would have a similar attitude to do different parts of the role within their selected specialisations. So yeah, we've got that happening, and we'll continue to look for opportunities, but conscious that we need to resource the mentoring and training of these cadets and apprentices, and B, need to fund them through a financially sustainable method.
Councillor Pakes.
Is there any specific skill shortages outside the obviously planning areas and engineering areas? Is there any other skill shortage perhaps should be identified in this plan, or is that something this plan would address?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Look, it really does depend on the market at the time. You know, at some points, so we've spoken about planners, development engineers. There's also, it's just trying to get the right people into the right roles and whether they're available at the time and looking to come to Kempsey and live and work in our shire. So it can vary day to day.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
And my last question is training and culture. I think culture is as important as training. Is culture something that could be part of this document, or does that lie in another area of council? Is culture as important as the training?
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, look, culture is a very important thing, and we've had a cultural refocus group that was running under the previous general manager, and we've undertaken the most recent staff survey, which will be informing future actions on that. Culture is something that we all need to work on, and yeah, it's absolutely a driving force in attracting talent. Kempsey has a good reputation in terms of its culture compared to some other councils. And we'd be aiming to keep that up. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's specifically spelt out in this document, but part of retaining our workforce is ensuring that we have a very positive culture.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the reason I mention culture is the reason people stay, in my experience in the industry, is because they're happy at their work and they're included. So I think that's an important part that I would ask if it could be included as an improvement.
Ms. Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just further to the comments of the Acting General Manager, I think one of the ways that we have looked at organisational culture is under that leadership component as a focus area. This plan, whilst it is broadly focused on workforce management, culture is obviously a key requirement for all of our leaders. And so typically you will see the conversations around culture and the examples that we're looking at with regards to our staff survey and those sorts of things being undertaken at a broader leadership level rather than putting them in a particular plan. But absolutely, it could be looked at.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah. The reason I refer to that as a critical thing is that means that the whole organisation is a representative for the whole organisation. So each individual is a representative here. So that's why I asked for that to be included.
Councillor Pakes, thank you for that. Can we please be wary that we have a code of meeting practice that specifically says you either ask questions or you make a speech. So you need to decide which one you're going to do, because if you continue to make statements, I will take it as a speech and you won't have that right anymore. You can, if you have those specific points, save it for when you have your speech. We'll now move to the operational plan.
Oh, I just had one question. Can I just ask?
Lawrence.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out page.
Is it a question?
Is it a question? Yes, it is a question. Around the mental health and wellbeing, I just wanted to point out and ask a question around because it says there's challenges around the workplace stress, and there's a point made about social media, and I think that's a really important topic to mention, and the importance of staff as well, their wellbeing and the psychosocial safety around the risk impacts. And it says here that it's stretched capacity for people leaders. I just wanted to ask what's happening in that space to support staff and further in that regard.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, psychosocial safety in particular is very much an emerging area, and essentially it's a complex one for staff and leaders to actually navigate. So at this point in time, we're looking at different training opportunities and also learnings, within the group, as we've had a couple of cases which, each one is unique, and the response, learning from those responses and learning from what's occurred is really the way forward. So a lot of support for leaders, and it's appearing in different parts of the organisation. So to to provide that knowledge transfer and the training in what is really a new area. In terms of workload, etc. Also, obviously being very aware of that, looking at our budgets and our programs to ensure that we're not overloading people, and then obviously taking into account the impacts of disasters, etc. And the things that Councillor Wyatt was raising about, workload suddenly increasing or being, ostensibly put to one side while you focus on something else. That workload doesn't go away. So the stress of that is in itself a concern for various parties, and people deal with it differently. So yeah, a lot going on, and yeah, a number of things still developing in that space as well.
Thank you. We'll now move to the operational plan with 2025-2026. Is there any questions on this document? Councillor Bain.
Madam Mayor, the aquatic strategy, have we, there was a resolution of council that there'd be ongoing meetings with the Gladstone community. Could we have an update on that, please?
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, unless the General Manager has something specific, I'd have to take that on notice, Councillor Bain, with regards to Gladstone specifically. You will have recalled that we are doing some further work with regards to the aquatic strategy, and potential future requirements around our pools. There will be a briefing on that come to Councillor in coming months, but I don't have a specific timing, but happy to get back to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. May I ask another question? That have we? I've got a half a memory that we've actually entered into a contract with the South West Rocks Pool. Is that correct?
Mr Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe we have an existing contract for the South West Rocks Pool management. Yeah.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, I missed something here, but how do we go from workforce strategy 1.2 to
Sorry, I'm going as it was resolved as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Okay. Right.
Sorry if that's a little bit confusing.
That's kind of hard.
It's easier for me to do the operational plan item.
Oh, okay. So I missed the question about long-term financial plan. Can I ask it? It's one question.
You may.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I was just going in the number order. I didn't look at that because I actually can't see it even with
You on a screen as well, but ask your question, that's fine.
I'm blind. I just want to ask one question on long-term financial plan. It's got the table there about base case scenario 1, scenario 2. I just want to, and it's got base case assumes full SRV, the next one assumes 7.5, and the next one assumes only the rate peg. I just want to ask a question. We resolved to just do the 7.5 next financial year. In principle, we resolved that. Will council bring base case or scenario 1 to the June meeting for us to endorse?
Mr Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the scenario that's been presented in these documents is the scenario where there's a 7.5% rate rise this year, and then there is a catch-up rate rise next year, so that the full 15% is implemented over 2 years. That does mean at this stage about a 10.5% increase next year to include the PEG plus the catch-up. That is what's being presented in these documents, and unless we are advised otherwise, that'll be what's brought to June. Yep.
Operational plan, Councillor Coburn.
Yeah, I do have one question. One thing that really jumped out at me. This is right at the end of the document where you actually list the capital works projects. I note in here that for Stewart's Point sewage system, we've got $20 million in there. Will that amount be spent across the next 12 months?
Mr Trotter.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. I have noted that there is a total spend, a grand total of approximately $130.5 million in projects within this plan. Is Council confident that they will be able to deliver such a large body of work with the resources available to them?
Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. This budget's been developed based on the programs of work that we have, the grant funding that we have, and the programs for each project being investigated as far as possible. So at this stage, that is the forecast regarding where all of these projects will land. There may be delays because obviously the full environmental approvals and all the rest can get quite complex and sometimes do slow things down. However, at this stage, if we can get those approvals in place in line with the programs, and if we can get a decent tender result or whatever it is, however our procurement method works, then subject to weather, etc., we're aiming to deliver this. That will be reviewed again before this is finalised, but certainly the task given to all the relevant managers is to go through these programs and really have a really hard look to whether they can or cannot be delivered. And at this stage, this is the program. It is a very big program, but there are some large one-off numbers that make a very different. You know, we've got essentially 20 million for Stuart McIntyre Dam, 20 million for Stuart's Point. There's 40. So if those two projects get delayed, that's a big impact. But if they go, then we'll have hit the target spend on those projects. That's just the phased spend for the upcoming year.
And in regards to this year's or the current operational plan, I know we will get another quarterly report come to us in May. If that operational plan isn't fully delivered, does Council meeting to discuss what hasn't been completed, whether the projects that haven't been even initiated, haven't even started, whether they are still valid and should be considered? Is that something that comes back to Council for discussion?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. There's a section, report will come back regarding revotes, and what's the other word we use, Wayne? Carryovers, that's right. So carryovers, obviously the projects which are underway, or carryovers are the ones that are underway. So we've got a spend already occurring. So usually that's a phasing issue in terms of some sort of delay or has just pushed it into the next financial year. But a revote would be if the project has not substantially commenced at all. And that would be put to Council for discussion.
Councillor Selby.
Just with that, Stuart's Point sewerage, that's just in this coming year, yeah?
Mr. Trotter.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So currently we're working with the department in the EIS. We'll have that submitted mid-year and then basically move into the tendering and construction of that scheme. So
Thank you.
All right. Revenue policy. Oh, Councillor Pakes on the operational plan.
Yeah, on the operational plan, page 66 and 65, the late part of 65, the Smithtown levy remediation. Can you explain those projects, that batch of projects, and the total funding for that area?
Mr. Thorogood.
Through you, Madam Mayor. To go to the last bit, I'd have to add up the line items to get to the total funding. So it is as it's documented in the document. They are a range of works which have been planned in consultation with Public Works to restore the Smithtown levees to their intended design heights. They will be undertaken by a combination of internal council resources and contractors. And they're being undertaken under the natural disaster funding arrangements in conjunction with Public Works.
So specifically for those projects, have they had consultation with the landowners in that area, given that that levy crosses multiple boundaries?
I would have to take that on notice, but certainly there has been survey work done down there, and landowners have approached staff during the during those survey works. As far as formal consultation goes, I would dare say probably not at this point, but I'd need to take it on notice. And I am advised that the total amount of works is $3.9 million.
Councillor Pakes.
When might it be reasonable that communication occurs?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Councillor Pakes, as I said, I'll take that on notice.
Moving to page, scrolling down. I'll probably ask the question around where the Tozer Road Bridge sits in this document, whether it's a part of this document or not. Does any of those projects represent anything of Tozer Road Bridge or the bridge replacement? Sorry, renewal. It's a renewal.
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, it can be found on page 67. It is AGRN 10012, Tozer Road long-term repair. There is $2 million allocated in the coming year for it.
And what percentage of that is the total project? So that's $2 million of 20, is that right?
$1 million of 20, correct.
Scrolling down further. In the community section of the document, specifically the last item, W6729, the Crescent Head Sports Complex Lighting Project grant. Was that reported in the last grant report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, that grant was not reported in the last grant report. That grant was a grant that was actually applied for by the Crescent Head Football Club, not by council. They were successful in obtaining those funds under the Play Our Way grant funding stream for lighting on their fields.
So specifically to that line item, how does that reflected in our grants policy?
In our grants policy, through you, Madam Mayor, our grants policy covers competitive grants which are applied for by council. That by our grants policy, it sits outside of that framework.
So specifically on that line item, what's the financial impact of depreciation expenses? Like what does that $750,000 represent to the community without, just besides a line item? What budgeting is in place for that $750,000?
Mr. Thorogood.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, that $750,000 represents the capital cost of the project and will fully fund that. Council's contribution to the project will be project management. I'd need to take what the ongoing depreciation impact of that in the future will be on notice.
Yeah, and specifically the management, what is it been itemised as to how much it will cost council staff time and effort to do that? Because it's the first we've heard of it.
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, it is incorporated into the operating plan and will be managed by council's project managers. But we don't itemise those project management costs project by project in the operational plan. But being capital projects, those project management expenses will be covered from that 750. Sorry, not all of them will be because we have a contribution, but they will be covered.
So I'm sorry, we have a contribution.
I said our contribution will be some of the project management costs, correct that. So it's not a 50-50 grant, but part of council's co-contribution to that will be project management costs.
So has specified a number of our contribution, because like this is the first we've seen this $750,000 turn up. Have we specified what we're spending here?
No, there is not a dollar figure attached to it.
I suppose specifically to this one, how does it link into our Macleay-Burleigh Sports Strategy 2017? Is it listed in the outcomes for the Macleay-Burleigh Sports Strategy 2017?
Councillor Pakes, can I just make a comment that this grant was applied for by the Crescent Head Soccer Club because they identified that they needed upgraded to lighting in their facility. And I'll also note that the president of Crescent Head Soccer Club is Pele Ingalls, who actually used to be a Matilda. So she's doing amazing things for women in football at that club, trying to get lighting facilities to make it more safe for women to train. So I just want to make that comment to you, because I just don't think, without having them in the room today, that your line of questioning is exactly fair.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm asking questions in regards to a document that's been presented to me. And before this day, before I've read this document, I hadn't seen any detail to it. So I think it's fair and reasonable to ask questions in regard to it being a budget line item and its expense to a upcoming delivery program. That has to be fair and reasonable on a councillor's behalf. If it's not, please tell me why.
I just outlined to you why.
Yep.
How does this link to the sporting strategy?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I think I can only go back to what I said at the start. This was a grant opportunity that was pursued by a sporting club in the Macleay Valley. That council has agreed to auspice those funds for them. They are on Crown land, which is managed by council and therefore requires our consent and our management moving forward. We certainly would not want to find ourselves in a circumstance where they pursued the spending of the grant money independently of council with something that wasn't what council would want on the land. It's in our best interest to assist them to manage this project, after they have been successful in obtaining the funding.
So my question now is around master plans for sporting areas and how council administers those. Is there a master plan in place for that area?
Ms. Davies or Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, there is not a current master plan for that area, no.
So once again, specifically on that item, is it prudent of a organisation such as ours to approve something that doesn't have a master plan for it? And an organisation has gone out of there and done the effort to get the money. Great, fantastic, important. How do we make responsible spending without a plan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the question's a little bit argumentative. To be fair, council staff would not place the item in the plan if we did not think it was prudent.
Councillor Pakes, I'm just going to leave this line of questioning for a moment because I can feel the room getting a little heated. I'm just going to move to Councillor Bain and then I'll come back to you. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I that the Cresney Soccer Club applied for the funding. We are contributing project management, but no cash, no financial commitment, but there will be a depreciation cost down the line for a improved community asset. Is that correct summary?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Bain, that is correct.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Pakes.
Has council undertaken a project such as this in another sporting area?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we've done upgraded lighting on many of council's fields in recent years.
And so we've done a project like this already. That's clear that we've done already? Yeah. And so the project that I can think of is Verge Street. It was $625,000 for the lighting, and that lit 1, 2, 3, probably about 7 fields. How many fields are to be lit at present head?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I'll be honest, I'd need to take the number of fields on notice. However, what I can tell you is the quantity survey for the project, including all of the works that are necessary to be undertaken, is approximately $716,000.
Put that information before. So my question on that then is can the information regarding this grant be forwarded to the councillors so we are aware of what we are approving in this draft operational plan? Because all this information is quite new today. Can we have that information?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I'm happy to share information on the project with councillors.
Right.
And my final question is why, of the total list of all those items, how many of these items are budgeted and have solid financial quotes or deliver? How many are line items? Because it's prudent in business that you allow the correct amount at quoting so you can deliver the project. How many of these items in this total budget are to that standard, and how many are at a line item of a number?
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Council, a lot of projects. a long list of projects. The majority of them, first up, are done on a unit rate basis or through experience on prior projects. And then once they're adopted, we will then move into getting quotes or estimates, more detailed breakdowns on the projects. So in terms of an exact figure, how many have actually been quoted, I'd suggest it would be very few, because we haven't gone to the market, because these projects aren't adopted by council. So we can't go to the market and waste the market's time on 100 plus without them being adopted by council and actually having a budget. Once we've got a budget, we'll proceed through the project process, whereby we will go through a project planning process and then seek quotes and undertake the works.
I note this has been a delivery strategy for a long time, and I see that there's an efficiency to be had in this. If you want an example of the project, I think it's probably Verge Street Pavilion, not delivered, had multiple plans done for it.
Do you have a question, Councillor Pakes?
Yeah, have we learned our lessons from undelivered grant projects? Because ultimately, in this going forward.
Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I know that you've referred to Verge Street. Obviously, Verge Street went through exercises. It was quantity surveyed, it was costed, it was tendered, it was costed again. So right throughout, the processes that you're describing have been occurring, and unfortunately it hasn't resulted in the outcome you're looking for. So do we cost out our projects? Absolutely. Are we still at the whim of markets on occasion, or do things change? Yes. That project, as you would be aware, was delayed significantly by flood impacts, which necessitated redesigning the building. There was significant political pressure to actually spend other parts of the budget, which is why we didn't leave $10 million sitting for that period of time. So I guess the question is, what have we learned from that? We've followed the process and unfortunately got a bad outcome. We would still be looking to spend the majority of funds on a project where we can, as the grant bodies do seek that from us to demonstrate that we are able to spend money. So, yeah, in terms of learnings, we're following a process that's pretty standard across the industry. You set your budget items, you work out what you're going to do, the details of that to deliver those projects.
In 2022, the state government brought out a grants administration policy, 46 pages or 48 pages, in regards to how grants are administered by whoever receives the grant funding. One, are you aware of that document? And two, is that how Kempsey Shire Council will be administering its grants from the state government going forward?
Mr. Jackson.
I will personally acknowledge that I'm not aware of that document, and I've not studied it in any great detail. We are administering funds in accordance with the requirements of the grant funding bodies. We're working with those grant funding bodies. They're aware of how we're delivering projects. They appear to be satisfied with the way we're delivering projects. We report to them regularly. We keep in contact with them, and we deliver projects predominantly to the satisfaction of those grant funding bodies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can actually add a little bit to that, because Councillor Pakes has previously provided me with a copy of the document. The New South Wales Cabinet Office's Grants Administration Guide applies to ministers, meaning the New South Wales Public Service and ministerial staff. It does not apply to councils.
Thank you, Mr. Thorogood. Councillor Pakes, what is your question?
My question is in regards to that grants administration document being delivered. Do you think that there is a position for council to use that as a grants policy directive?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's not really relevant to the business which is at hand.
All right. I'm going to adjourn the meeting for morning tea, and we'll come back at 5 to 11. Thank you, councillors. We're now back in council and we're on the operational plan still. Do we have further questions? Councillor Pakes?
Yes. Question on the capital playground replacement, $200,000. Is that, given that that was something in our previous council around Stewart's Point playground replacement, have we highlighted the area that'll be spent in, or is that unallocated?
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I don't have the specifics of the program, but my understanding is that it's not a single playground upgrade. It's going to be a piece by piece spread across the network. So in that instance, it won't be a single playground being upgraded.
So the 4.309 million for the fleet program budget, is there a strategy in regards to what and how that'll be spent? Is that something that councillors will be briefed on or have any input into?
Mr. Jackson.
No, that's an operational plan. So effectively, we work through the useful life and condition of the assets, and work through a program of replacement to keep the fleet within appropriate standards.
And as a councillor, is that a position that may have some movement in it? If, say, a specific item is kept for a longer period of time, say 1 extra year, that replacement is put back, so that 4.3 million may not have to be spent during the 12-month period. May it be for an excavator with 2,000, not 2,200 hours, or a truck with, you know.
Councillor Pakes, can I just clarify for the in efforts of time and how long we have today and what we need to get through? I just want to know how many questions that you have in total on this document.
This is the third last line from the bottom of the document, and this is the last one I've got a question on.
Right, thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, right through you, Madam Mayor. Look, the strategy for fleet replacement and renewal is always under review, and they will be monitoring, particularly now that GPS is on there, we'll be monitoring the kilometres or hours on each item of plant throughout the program. There may be minor changes, but we've allocated the budget based on the best forecasts available and the current usage and forecast regarding each of those items. There may be opportunities to move that around a little, but predominantly that is the program that is done based on the information that we have at this moment across quite a considerable portfolio.
And supplementary to that one, so all fleet purchases within that GPS monitoring will be purchased with that in it. That's part of that cost, or is that a separate line item?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the GPS units themselves are a small relocatable module, so they just need to be reassigned and recoded to the new vehicle. There will be some instances where the module, there are a couple of different styles, but the majority of modules will move across.
Right, we now move on to the revenue policy. Or did you have a question on the OP? Revenue, Councillor Bain.
Martin Blue, Madam Mayor. Look, I've heard the Speaker at the Public Forum yesterday saying, that we shouldn't be borrowing because, if we're already in debt, that borrowing is counterproductive. I'm reading on page 9 of the draft revenue policy that we're looking at 10 million of the general fund to fund airport upgrades, waste management centre projects and upgrades of roads. Could you please outline what would be the consequence of not borrowing or borrowing less than the 10 million?
Douglas.
Through you, Madam Mayor. For the general fund borrowings, if we don't do the borrow for the waste management centre, that cell 4 and 5 won't be progressed as needed, which can have operational, environmental and other risks attached to it. In terms of the road infrastructure, if we don't do that, we'll defer it Deferring it effectively means that the condition will get worse over time, and we have a policy to keep our assets from not going backwards effectively. And then for the airport upgrade, that's already been sort of adopted through the airport feasibility, and is a grant-related project with co-funding. So that's been sort of agreed to go ahead. Not borrowing for that would mean, well, we'd basically start running out of cash in general fund.
Thank you. May I ask a further question? So I understand that there would be significant impact on our asset base if we didn't borrow. Is there, now I note that last time we borrowed from a bank rather than T Corp, and I believe T Corp has lower interest rates. And what barriers are there to us borrowing money through Treasury Corporation, please?
So Treasury Corporation has not let us borrow from them because our long-term financial plan at a consolidated level, of which general fund mainly impacts it, they haven't seen it as a good enough revenue path that meets their lending criteria. We've been speaking to them and we've submitted our draft long-term financial plan, the unadopted one. So they're going to have a look at that. Long story short, if we don't have a revenue stream to effectively be able to service those loans, both in terms of the interest and the loan borrowings, T Corp won't lend to us. They're very strict lending criteria, a lot stricter than the banks. And so unless our long-term financial plan stacks up from in their lending team's eyes, we won't secure borrowings through them. But we are trying to do that this time around.
Councillor Bain.
So what might be the, I know this fluctuates a lot, but what might be the difference in interest rates between a commercial bank and T Corp, for example?
There's usually about 20 basis points or 0.2% interest, but that can vary, but that's roughly about what it is.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions on the revenue policy? Councillor Coburn, then Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, I would like to ask a question. It's around the same area that Councillor Bain was discussing, the $10 million fund, $10 million borrow for the capital works out of the general fund. We also borrowed $10 million, I believe. I think it was originally going to be $13 million last year, and I believe $10 million was also borrowed for the same reasons last year. Is this going to be a continuing trend moving through year by year, that we're going to be looking at continuously borrowing at this level to spend on capital works?
To answer your question, last year and this year, basically similar reasons. The Waste Management Centre in particular has had Cell 4 and then Cell 5 piggyback off that. The airport, I think, is mainly related to next year. The road infrastructure, yes, we've earmarked to keep our backlog under control. We need to borrow in the vicinity of about 7 million a year. But with the increase in the cost of replacing that may increase to about $10 million a year. And that's ongoing for the next 10 years in this long-term financial plan. And that's just to keep our roads from not going backwards. So in the asset management life cycle, you may have seen a graph that has a wavy replacement program and depreciation's a straight line. So if you're getting rates from the ratepayers that covers the depreciation line, then you can take that money and pay for your replacement capital without taking out any borrowings. But if your assets are in a state of, in a condition where the depreciation you're collecting from rates is not sufficient to fund the program, then you need to borrow to fund that program in those times when you're trying to get your asset condition back to a suitable level, and then it sort of drops off and then comes below the depreciation curve again. So it is forecast at this point for the next 10 years. After that, we would evaluate, and we would evaluate anyway every year in the long-term financial plan, but we would use the same modeling and see if that value changes over time.
So then what you're saying then is that at the end of the 10-year period, so we're going to be borrowing $10 million each year across the next 10 years. So that's quite a big curve that we're looking at. So then we can expect to go into a situation where we won't require these borrowings.
Yeah, that's the hope, that the asset condition becomes more stable and we don't have to invest more than we are collecting rates for, which means we won't have to take out loans. Having said that, that's why our strategy to try and secure and lobby grant funding for our capital program from both state and federal levels of government will help. Again, it's the same thing I've said before: reduce the borrowings, reduce the interest on those borrowings, and reduce the deficit. So wherever we can, and we will obviously be looking over that 10-year time frame to secure as much grant funding for the road program in particular. But any replacement capital grant funding is definitely an opportunity to reduce borrowings.
One more question, if that's okay. So in regard to that, then my understanding is that council will apply for a loan of the full $10 million straight off the bat, so that they have those funds obviously at hand. So if we secure grant funding, then how do we offset? How will that grant funding then offset that $10 million that's been borrowed? How will that impact that?
Yeah, so we borrow usually at the end of the year for capital projects that have occurred during the year. If we have secured grant funding in that year, then we may not need to take out those borrowings. If for whatever reason we've taken out borrowings for the projects, and it's, say, a multi-year project, and then grant funding comes in thereafter, then the loans that were flagged in later years to complete that project would just not, we wouldn't take out any loans for that. So the grant funding basically replaces the cash injection that we would get from the loans. So that's how it offsets. So your grant fund, in your cash flow statement, the grant funding would go up, say about 10 million, and your loan borrowings would go down by 10.
And Councillor Coburn, you might see this play out as we move into June. Is council will have a report that will say we might, but just say they announce roads to recovery at a similar time that is more favourable. They'll actually drop that loan amount and will borrow right at the last minute, and we'll move it within that council meeting. So you actually will see that play out throughout the term. Do we have any more questions on the revenue policy?
Yes, please.
Councillor Wyatt?
Yeah. Just following on from that line of questioning, is there another reason to support what you're talking about, reducing the borrowings over time, is due to the prediction that asset renewal funding ratio will increase from 66% to 100%, which my understanding means that the assets are in good condition and don't require as much maintenance or renewal?
Yeah, so the renewal ratio is set at 100% benchmark. So that says if that asset has got to a point which needs to be renewed, then you're renewing it. If you've actually got assets that are at a condition that is lower than acceptable, you actually need a renewal ratio of greater than 100%. 100% is basically the minimum. Anything in excess of that, for reasons that are required, is definitely acceptable and normal.
Does it still mean the higher the ratio, the less need to borrow money to maintain those assets?
Not necessarily.
But my actual question then is section 7 on that talks about interest on overdue rates and charges. It says 10.5% on overdue fees and charges, which is quite large. And I thought that council set this rather than the Office of Local Government, and I thought we set it at 9%.
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, that's a rate that is set by local government every year, which we adopt. And they only release that rate between now and June. So in the draft, we're just using the rate that we currently use. So it could be higher or lower than that when this document comes back in June.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I might just add to that. A common misunderstanding about the 10.5% is the height of it. The 10.5% is simple interest. It's not compound interest. So you do not pay interest on your interest. And therefore, it does not compare. It's not like 10.5% on a bank interest rate. The other thing, just speaking to Mr. Kay's point last night on the public forum, under our hardship policy, we do waive interest charges for people who are under hardship policies. In most cases, it's a decision that we make on a case-by-case basis, but we can waive those interest charges under the hardship policy.
So where did I get the idea that I just thought that when we were looking at our races that we agreed to a 9% increase. Maybe I'm thinking something else.
Based on, not sure.
Then my next question is, I'll look it up actually, and I will put it through the portal. When does the environmental levy run out, and how is the environmental levy calculated?
Mr. Jackson. Mr. Douglas.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The environmental levy finishes at the end of 27-28. And the way it's calculated is on the number of assessments times the environmental levy allowance that we're allowed to put up, which is the same as rate peg.
Thank you. So have you factored, I'm assuming if that's been factored in here, no environmental levy beyond 2027-8, or is there a sort of an indication from state or IPART that will be ongoing?
The long-term financial plan has a budgeting assumption in there that it will continue after 27-28. The unfortunate part about that is that it is a SV, or a special rate variation process, that needs to be conducted through IPART again. It's not quite on the same magnitude as the SRV that we've been through, because this is actually built into the rates already. And so it's a continuation of that, but there does need to be a consultation period and community engagement on it. So if council decides to proceed with that, that would be the process we'd have to go through again.
So it's not the environmental levy is not applied through the whole of local government. It's just applied to us. Is that correct?
The environmental levy, through you, Madam Mayor, the environmental levy is a special rate that was applied for specific purposes by this council, just as other councils apply for either a general rate or a special purpose levy. In this case, it was only for 10 years. And so, yeah, if we are going to continue it, as is currently assumed in the long-term financial plan, we will need to go through a variation on the special rate process that we've been through previously.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. And just the table 1, which I think is a great table, and I would draw people's attention to that because you can sort of work out a bit how your rates are worked out. Can you just give a very quick explanation of that table, like what the base rate is, how it's applied, and what is the ad valorem and how it is applied?
Through you, Madam Mayor. To try and keep it relatively simple, the ad valorem is applied to the land value, multiplied out. The base rate is what every ratepayer in that category is charged. The two added together will give you the overall rate. So the main implication of that is, and you can see, say, in the residential line, that there's 13,000 assessments with a land value of 3.7 billion. If you have a high land value multiplied by that ad valorem rate, that variable component of your rate will be higher than somebody who has a lower land value. But every single person, regardless of how rich or how poor they are, will be charged $737 without question.
Yeah, thanks for that. Have you made a fact sheet of that? Can that be made a fact sheet maybe for that? I think that was certainly something that was triggered last time, is that those land valuations went extremely large, and therefore some of those discrepancies were as a result of that.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, we've got several documents explaining this. There's even a wonderful video that was recorded about me, trying to explain in particular the impact of the change in land value. It is on the website. We can try to make that more visible, but it's been there for years.
And just the other comment around that is that base rate of the 737 just for the residential. My understanding of that is the rates are 50% of that, and the other is the ad valorem. No, actually, maybe no. You explain it, because I'm trying to get to the point that is applied equitably using the maximum amount allowable, so that the ad valorem component of that is less. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we take our total rate pie, say, of the 27 million, and effectively say, what percentage is residential are we going to collect from residential, what percentage from farmland, etc. Once those amounts are divvied up, we say for residential, what percentage is going to be the fixed component. So we fix 50% of that amount that we're going to collect from residential as fixed. We divide that by the number of assessments, which gives us the 737. The rest of that 50% is based on the ad valorem rate. So you divide the land value by the 50%, and the number of assessments gives you the ad valorem rate. So that strategy means that for the most part, in residential, the fixed component is as high as we can set it, meaning the variable component is as least impactful as possible under the legislation.
That's it. Thanks. That's good. Thank you.
Any more questions on the revenue policy? Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I'd go to point 6, on-site sewer charges, 5,360 sewer. What number of those are from Stewart's Point? Specifically, given that they will have an upgrade, which will mean that their on-site residential will be $100, and then it'll go up to, is it 1,600, and just have to scroll back up, 1,637. And how is that reflected in our budget numbers? And how many are Stewart's Point?
Mr. Trotter.
Stewart's Point, sorry, the Stewart's Point scheme will cover about 550 residences. So that number will come down to under, yeah.
Just so as a budget number, 550 times $1,437, what number does that equate to in the budget? And how is that represented? Because that's an increase in revenue, correct?
Yep. So
we just got funding for.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. So we had this at the previous briefing. The impact of the 551 residents coming online for Stewart's Point would bring in the initial year roughly about $1 million. That plant coming online to operate and to treat the effluent would cost about $1 million as well. And then the ongoing depreciation of that plant is roughly about close to $1 million as well. So it's kind of a negative situation by initially putting on that plant.
Specific to that, the associated cost to on-site wastewater treatment, is that being calculated in that number? I see $1 million to depreciation plus $1 million plants, $2 million yet. But what about the 500 inspections not required for the 500 on-site wastewater? What's the number associated to that?
Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but it's not significant in terms of the numbers we're talking about here.
We'll now move on to the rates maps. Do we have any questions on the rates maps? Fees and charges 2025, 2026. Do we have any questions on these, Councillor Wyatt?
Yes, please. You might have to take this on notice, but of the 953 fees and charges, are you able to estimate how, as a percentage, how many of those are at the discretion of council as opposed to set by OLG, IPART or state government?
We'd probably have to take that on notice. There's a brief analysis of the fees and charges in the body of the document, but that exact detail we probably would need to go through and analyze.
Is that difficult to do?
No, it would. Oh, I think it's too difficult if you have time.
Well, I don't want to give you extra time. I am just curious as to understand how much we can set ourselves and how much they're dictated to council.
Yeah, we can probably do a sort of a back of the envelope if it's directionally correct. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And the fees that, can I go on? Yeah. The fees that are set by the EPA, are these the section 7, I think it says 711 and 712 plans for development contribution? No? What are they?
No, the section 711 and 712 fees, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, apologies, are set through the contributions planning framework. So they're not really this. This is around some of the other fees relating to applications and certificates, etc., along the way through the planning process, as well as companion animals and other fees. So, yeah, not specifically those contributions. They're set through our documents, but all the fees associated and inspections and all those sorts of things.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall somewhere in a conversation somewhere that if there is a state significant development, that council has to pay development fees on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, council only has to pay development fees when we're the ones undertaking the development. What you state significant development is parts of the approval process are undertaken by them, and some of the post-consent certificates are issued by council. So council will receive fees for the post-consent certificates and the likes, but we don't necessarily receive the fees for the development application process.
Right. Okay, well that's probably it. So it comes back to us, not the other way around. That's probably it. And just the final question on box A there, it says that there's a comparison. So fees and charges have not been increased at this stage due to legislative requiring comparison between 2024 and 2025, the CPI. How will these be applied? Does that mean that if we approve our documents beforehand, are we then sort of retrospecting those fees, or are we allowed to increase as the legislation changes?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, there's a series of fees and the CPI scheduled to be released in the 30th of April. So we'll be able to update those fees before they're adopted in June. We just haven't applied those factors yet because they're not set.
Through additionally, through you, Madam Mayor, additionally to that, what the Act actually requires us to give notice of is the amount of a fee that we set or how the fee is set. Strictly, we don't have to give notice of all of those statutory fees and fees that are set by other people, but we include them all in a single document. So there is a single point of reference, public, staff and councillors as to what all our fees and charges are. But provided the document provides reference to how the fee is established, then we've met our requirements under the Act to give notice of the fee.
Further questions on the fees and charges, Councillor Pakes?
Yeah, only one question, basically around the pressure vessels being installed in the Stewart's Point option. Is there a opportunity or potential to have a fee for vacuum for those included as a line item in this fee structure, so that we have it there? It's not an issue that we have blockages in some of these pumps. Is it a line item in here to start with? And could we make it a line item so it's a line we can charge for going forward, and it's a known cost to developers or whoever has an issue with their individual pressure system?
So I was just trying to understand your question there, Councillor Pakes. Is this general maintenance or at commissioning?
Yeah, so it's within that time that becomes into warranty. So there's no question over a warranty issue, that the council has specified what the charge will be, and if it happens within that 2-week period that it needs to be rectified, that we've got a charge in there for it.
Council, basically we have that costs are recoverable off the builder, developer, etc. for misuse to start with. The developer or builder has the option to use council through our private works to actually do that work, but we'd have to gear up basically with resourcing to actually be able to do that for every sewer, and it does remain the responsibility of the plumber, builder or developer.
So just specifically to Stewart's Point, we're going to have 500 of them installed. At what point does that unit become an expense to council? Like
straight away.
Straight away. So that's automatically our responsibility if it has anything in it that's not right.
Just the same as a gravity system. If there's something stuck in your junction, depends on which side the junction it is. It's either a plumber or it's our council's issue.
Yeah. So we've got to go back to the developer if it's found to be a tile.
Correct.
Yeah, that's probably the point that I'm saying, is that we put a charge for that in here, or just research putting a charge into it, because it's going to come. 500 of them. There's going to be.
They're not new builds, Councillor Pakes. They're existing systems. So so the risk of building refuge going down the the drains of a house that's been there for 30, 40, 50 years is very unlikely.
Fair call. I'll raise it.
Thank you. Do you have another question?
I have a question about the whole suite of things. If you finish going through the individual plans, I'd like to ask about the whole suite of things. Thank you. I was considering asking for an amendment of the 35 days because there's a whole lot of other things on public display at the moment, and I understand that that's not possible, which you can explain in a minute. But my questions are, is this IPNR timeframe and process set by the Office of Local Government so that all councils need to have their IPNR documents approved by June? So this timeframe and process is set by them.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the documents need to be in place by 1 July. Fees and charges and the budgets, etc., allow the staff to undertake the work. So without an approved budget by 1 July, effectively the operational plan can't be enacted. The process, the timeframes regarding that, yes, the 28 days is the statutory timeframe for exhibition. The only way we can provide more time on this is to start the process earlier, and we get into that point of we're writing next year's budget only halfway through this year's budget. And obviously we've commenced this process essentially in the lead up to Christmas, but got serious about it in the new year and been flat out producing all these documents. So yeah, to bring them earlier, in the middle of quarterly reviews and everything else that are really setting the platform for where the budget sits and where the budget's going. It's difficult to start it much earlier than we have. It is obviously something we can consider, but you eventually sort of, you're just going too early. And yes, there are a lot of documents, and obviously for the 4-yearly cycle, you do get more documents with the delivery program in this sense. It is a tight program. Pretty much all councils go through this. As I said, there's a network of all the IP&R professionals in councils, and there's no particular right or wrong way to do this, but most of them end up putting their documents on display in April and getting them to the June meeting. It's tight. Staff really need to work hard on all those responses that are received to respond to them and take that into account. And obviously we'll, as discussed last night, we'll do our utmost to get those responses to councillors as early as we can when that exhibition period closes, so that you're better informed. But yeah, it's a tight program and it is a statewide issue.
Okay, so no possible amendment for 35 days. So does this process tie them all into the one big bundle? Why, and I'm sure I've asked this before, why do they have to be put through in one agenda item?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, it's in the name, integrated planning and reporting. So we need to, you've got to have your P and your R together to get the I. So unfortunately, it's just the way it is. And it's a big suite of documents. Most of them are referenced in that classic diagram that the Office of Local Government put up, saying, we add all these things together and they all interrelate. And unfortunately, yeah, it's a suite of documents, the integrated planning and reporting suite, that they do get tied together.
Okay, that's fair enough. So there's no way that you can deal with some of these, group them as separate agenda items, because, like, for example, some might be easy to get across the line and others may not. So there's no way to deviate and group a few of them.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have split a couple out. So the ones that are already on exhibition, the community strategic plan, and the consultation engagement strategy. So, yes, we can bring a few of them out, and, possibly they might have been able to come out. So yes, but they still got to come out in these, essentially across those two cycles, which are really just 1 month offset. So not particularly.
Microphone.
Sorry. Yeah, those comments just around procedure and process. Sorry, not a speech. I don't think it works very well. But and you've answered the other one about some of those documents going out earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move into speeches, and just in the interest of time, we are at 11:30 and still on the first agenda item of the meeting. So I will call now for debate. Councillor Bain, Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I think it's important to spend time on these vast suite of documents. In terms of the timeline, I acknowledge that there is a tight time frame, but month get the community strategic plan that has been out on public exhibition before us, and I believe that's the overarching document in the IP&R. So if there's any significant issues raised through community input into the community strategic plan, I believe that they need to do some tweaks of the DP and OP, not significant changes, but a few tweaks. I'd like to also refer to the asset renewal ratio, which is found out some very interesting information about, moving from currently 66.3% to 96% over 10 years. For me, looking at 66% asset renewal ratio leaps out to me as a concern. However, it was explained that, for example, with the replacement of timber bridges with the wooden bridges, that is considered new assets, and so it's not included in asset renewal. So that's one of the reasons that our asset renewal ratio is low, but the other one is, I believe that there's been a lot of work done in the last few years about getting a better understanding of the condition of our assets. I recognise that we're going to need to borrow significant money to get to that point over 10 years, but if we can get through those long-term things like the ongoing maintenance of roads, but also the water and sewer upgrades and the waste upgrades, then if we get those basics done, then that's going to set us up for that long-term success. I absolutely see with the revenue policy that we need to be looking for grants. I think it's a really appropriate time right at the moment with something's happening on the 3rd of May. That financial assistance grants of 1% of Commonwealth tax revenue will create local government New South Wales modelling that over nationally it would create 16,000 jobs and add $2.3 billion to GDP. The argument I've heard against it is, oh, well, the federal government can't afford it, but they can afford to, put up projects and so on. So I believe that now is a really good time for us to be all individuals, councillors and community to be lobbying the federal candidates to commit to that 1%. And yeah, I acknowledge the huge amount of work that's gone into the suite of documents and thank the staff for their work. And I commend this to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you. I want to start by saying thank you to the staff involved in getting this large suite of documents together, especially in some quite adverse conditions. Newly elected council in October. Since December, ELT has been significantly changed. Apart from whereas you're all in acting positions, you've all stepped up to fill vacancies and have had to drive and coordinate and deliver these. I just want to acknowledge that you've done that. And probably to you as well, you've stepped up as well because there is a vacancy there. And to our mayor as well, being newly elected, I imagine your learning curve is massive, and having half your ELT gone, you've had significant input into these. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank the staff and the leadership team for your work and contribution. It's appreciated. I just want to note that where number 2 there is, so whilst I was a dissenting vote to approve number 2 with the 7.5 SRV and the assumptions, I definitely agree that these plans need to go on public display. They are in draft, and I can't beg community enough to please comment. Let's have more than 10 people comment for next time around. Last year and the year before, I was going through my notes, I asked probably 50, 60, 70 questions, which I haven't this time. I anticipate that I will be making separate submissions on a few of those plans, the strategic one and the workforce one, and I hope that they'll be actually considered as part of the public exhibition process like any other submissions. I'm happy for them to be included in submissions and to be made public. I just need more time to digest, compose and ask questions. I've asked through ARIC for some more briefings and discussions of councillors around financial processes and depreciation and grants. Wait to say, I assume that hopefully will be coming. But I just wanted to add with the strategic asset plan, well done on section 10, which talks about asset management and cultural sensitivity, referring to traditional ecological knowledge, landscape sensitivity, cultural landscapes, consultation with advisory groups, as well as procurement options. I've been waiting to see something like that. That's great, fantastic. And I also really like the long list of legislative and policy checklist in Appendix 2. I think it gives some context around what we have to do. Particularly, there's things there like climate change policy framework, disaster response plans, EPNA Act and the regulations. I'd like to see more of those in the other documents. I think that gives a context around we're not sitting, or you're not sitting here making it up, and we're not just saying, yeah, do it. They are strategic, legislative, statutory requirements around policy. So I'd like to see more of those in the documents. And I love the appendices showing the asset renewals and the values, cost depreciations. I really like that plan. Excellent. And the workforce plan too, I really want to make some more contributions around that. The resourcing does bother me, as I have raised many, many times. I just want to maybe unpack and just close that for me once and for all. I think we need a well-supported workforce that has skills, access, capacity, and the resources needed and the aptitude for their work is vital. And Region Town Council is a key employer, and it can provide council's career starter opportunities for young people through those apprenticeships and cadetships and work experience. And it also can offer flexible work that supports parents, single parents, carers, mothers of young or parents of young children, especially in cases of Kempsey where we are a childcare desert. So I think through a workforce strategy, council should be like a leader employer, a role model of what good employment looks like. I mean, I've said before in my questioning, I do find the lumping of these together just doesn't sit right with me. I think there's too much too soon. Like, the plans on public display at the moment, I feel should be final before we then go and do the implementing part of that, setting the actions. We have a vision that's not yet final. We should have that before we then go off and do the rest of it. And I understand that it is what it is. Might think of ways to deal with that through advocacy or talking to other councillors. But anyway, that's my comments. Happy for those to go on to public display, and thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Coburn.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I also would like to congratulate the staff. I understand being in a caretaker mode, the way that you all are acting in other positions is very, very challenging, and it must be extremely frustrating watching your own areas just sort of plugging along and not being able to sort of jump in there. So we certainly acknowledge that it has probably been very challenging for you. I guess one of the key points for me around the suite of documents, and I understand how they all interconnect with each other. One of the things that really jumped out at me was the fact that we've had previous deficits from the previous 4 years due to lower cash reserves, which were consumed by large projects and also required further borrowings. So that combination of low cash reserves married with high levels of borrowings creates a real risk for the community and for council. And I also can see that within that risk and within this 10-year period, if that isn't really closely monitored and really addressed, it could trigger another special rate variation to try and close that gap. So I know through discussions that we've had that that financial sustainability is a very high priority for council, and the expectations from community is that these things will be very, very closely monitored so that we can avoid any other special rate variations put upon us. I also believe that there are a lot of projects to get through within these documents, particularly the ones within the operational plan for the next 12 months. And I also understand that will have to be managed by, I assume, the project managers at a very, very high level to make sure that they can get across the line. I can see that we have those 50% of our fees and charges have increased by that 2.51 to 10%, which is above the 2.4% CPI, as council have chosen to implement that rate of 3.9% on a lot of those, because they say that aligns better with the rate peg. And will, I hope, not be viewed by the public too negatively. Again, I just want to congratulate council, but I believe we have to be really extremely careful in how we approach this in light of the financial sustainability, and that it's imperative that everything is kept within its own checks and balances. I personally would like a lot more information coming out of that project management area to give us a better overview of how things are proceeding, whether that's a small report that can come back to council on a regular basis so that we can make sure that they are progressing. But again, congratulations on being able to get these documents out. And I also encourage the community. I know it's not an easy read. It's a very big suite of documents. But any type of feedback, if something jumps out at members of the community, I would encourage them to put anything back through to us to give us a bit of a heads up on how the community are feeling about this suite of documents. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, I think you're all doing a superb job in terms of acting and ensuring that the organisation's in good stead. I'm in the office almost every day, and whenever there's something coming up and whenever I walk in, I feel like you guys are all doing an outstanding job despite a few months of turmoil. So please don't feel like you're just plugging along. I think feedback has been really good. Is there any further speeches? Councillor Saul, would you like, you may close debate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this has been a major exercise for council this morning, but then again, it's important. These documents have been months of work by our staff behind the scenes to bring it to us for examination. Madam Mayor, I also want to commend our senior staff for your professionalism this morning under that grilling. It hasn't been easy. You've answered the questions well and you've given good feedback to councillors. So again, thank you for your patience and your ability to give us good feedback. Madam Mayor, this is certainly a situation where the community now can step up and have a say. They can read the documents if they wish and make commentary. We can't do any more than that. The point is, in years gone by, people haven't been engaged. This year they may engage more, but the point will be it's there for them to do. So we've been very transparent in our situation. We've been very thorough, and I do hope that we get some good commentary, but also commentary that's useful as well. So, Madam Mayor, I urge council to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We now move to item 10.2, which is the Community Grants Program Round 2. Do we have a mover? Councillor Bain, seconded Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Bain, would you like to open debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think the Community Grants Program is really good bang for buck in that it supports a community to be taking action in both in the sporting and creative fields and the support for NAIDOC activities with the micro grants. I absolutely think it's a great opportunity for local groups to learn and to be guided by council staff, and thank you for council staff working with community to develop the skills in submission writing, because they can then go out and write submissions for projects from other groups, as Crescent Head Soccer Club have done. So I thank the staff that are involved. I thank the community that have been involved, and I commend this to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. I echo your sentiments there. Thank you for that, Councillor Wyatt.
A little comment and a question, can I? Little comment.
Yeah.
Little comment. My comment is, yeah, we can see the categories there: community project funds, the creative one, and the sporting one, and NAIDOC. And I know that we added the creative one maybe last term through a suggestion by our mayor to add that, which was a good suggestion. We have had the same complainant asking questions and about the criteria and the transparency in the process every single time this comes out. And I'm sure it's been, and I've asked about it previously, it's been replied to previously, but I just want to ask again so that it's clear about the application process. So number one is, what is the intention of these grants?
Ms. Davies?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the intention of the grants is, I think Councillor Bain summed it up fairly well. It is around providing funding for community-led projects that support capacity building in our local organisations, but also benefit community across the Shire.
Councillor Wyatt?
Thank you. Question 2, how long have they been going for and when did they start?
Councillor Wyatt, I'd have to go back into previous records to check exactly how long they have been going for. From a brief check this morning, I could see records back as far as 2012, so at least 13 or so years.
Yeah. A long time.
Yeah.
And what are the application guidelines?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the application guidelines are contained in a singular document on our website. and are distributed when we open each round of grants, which is 2 per year. The guidelines clearly articulate what funding categories are open for application, how much money is available for each category, what is the maximum allowable grant per category. They also outline eligibility criteria around the organisations that can apply and the assessment criteria that are used to assess each grant application.
So the assessment criteria is in those guidelines as well?
That is correct.
Can you give an example of some of the types of questions or how many questions are in an application? And it's a no-brainer. I think they have to answer every single question in order to be considered.
True. I don't have the exact questions in front of me, but effectively the questions enable the organisation or the applicant to outline how they meet the selection criteria. So it is around the why they're looking to do the project, what it is, when they're going to do it, who's involved. They are also required to complete a budget outline and explain how the project aligns with objectives within our community strategic plan, how it benefits our community. On our website, we do have examples so people can actually look and understand what our expectations are around a letter of support from a local organisation, what the budget needs to look like, those sorts of things.
So how does a committee decide when there are, far more applications that can be funded and where maybe some of those grants you need to split very fine hairs? So how do you approach something like that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The applications are assessed by a panel of staff. They are scored in accordance with the assessment criteria. And obviously we do have a finite budget and have instances whereby one particular category of grants may be fully expended in the first round of the 2 rounds of grants that we have each year. Effectively, the decision that is made when there are very tight rankings, can I say, is looking at where is the line drawn. We may just have to say, unfortunately, these 4 projects can be funded and we will recommend that these people apply next year. Or alternatively, if it is deemed that there is value in supporting additional projects, but perhaps to a slightly lower value than what has been applied. So if the project could still be delivered with slightly less funds, then there is potential to look at how the budget is split between projects as well.
Thank you for those. 3 more around the unsuccessful ones. So what are some of the factors that make a grant unsuccessful?
Okay. The first and foremost, I guess, hurdle for an applicant to cross is ensuring that they as an organisation are eligible. So our guidelines have the eligibility criteria around who is and isn't eligible to apply. And then the second is really around whether they meet the actual assessment criteria. So, do they demonstrate that they're providing value for the community, that the project has strong community support? Have they provided those budget details? And do they have capacity to deliver? So if they don't clearly articulate that or can't meet, then that's obviously deems them potentially unsuccessful.
And where those ones are unsuccessful, how is that feedback delivered? And where resources are available, does staff sort of help them with understanding why their applications weren't successful? And if they reapply, help them to reapply next time round?
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. Staff do notify unsuccessful applicants and seek to provide them with feedback. That feedback can be initially in writing. It may result in a follow-up conversation or a meeting with the particular group. Absolutely, if people have a great project and need some support in ensuring they fulfil the assessment criteria, we do encourage them to reapply, and we'll actively work with them to support and provide guidance on their application.
I've just noticed in the time that I've been sitting in this seat is that more and more grants are being applied for. And I'm satisfied as a councillor making these decisions that those guidelines are clear and transparent. But I would like to see next time round is, can you just add the guidelines PDF as an attachment so that it's clearly seen for people that don't find it on the website? But thank you for answering those.
Absolutely, we can. Thanks, Councillor White.
Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, to answer the question in the room today, this community grants actually morphed out of the mayoral allowance. Liz Campbell, when she was mayor, graciously donated her mayoral allowance to charities like this, and had grants coming through. Over time, it was realised that perhaps a previous future mayor may not wish to do so. So council at the time decided to establish a community grants program, which we have in our room today. Madam Mayor, and I believe the community is quite accepting of that. They're quite happy to see funds being given to organisations who are worthy. So I think the staff do a wonderful job being able to work out, where it should be going to for the best bang for the buck. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Do we have any more questions? Any debate? Councillor Bain, would you like to close debate? I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We'll now move to item 10.4, which is a dementia-friendly organisation. Councillor Bain will move that one, and seconded by Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must admit, when at first glance, I was a bit disappointed in the response here, but then when I looked into it further, I'm very comfortable with it, and I thank the community development manager for the level of work that went into researching and writing this report. I thank the staff who were involved in the workshops, and I also thank Council for the support that has been given to the dementia-friendly Kempsey informal group. I understand through reading the report thoroughly and discussing that the resourcing was a lot more than I originally understood, and I've given feedback on that matter to Dementia Australia, who are going to look at maybe ways that they can streamline the process and make it more accessible to local government organisations. Because as it stands at the moment, I believe, reading the report, there's only one council area, Northern Beaches, that is taken on becoming a dementia-friendly organisation. But it was a lot more complex than I originally thought. I absolutely appreciate the fact that the support for people living with dementia and their carers will be integrated into the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, and will be dementia awareness will be included in onboarding training for new staff. So that's really, really practical outcomes of this, and I'm hoping we'll continue with the dementia-friendly Kempsey group, reaching out and supporting others, and potentially encourage people that are in that group to integrate into the Disability Inclusion Committee, and see if we can get some runs on the board with integrating those. So thank you very much to staff for the time and commitment and the compassion that has been shown by councillors and council staff, and I commend this notice of motion to my colleagues. Thank you. This report, sorry, to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or any speeches? No, I would just like to say thank you to Councillor Bain for being an advocate for dementia and for bringing this to council in its original form, which was to try and make council a dementia-friendly organisation. I think your willingness to compromise on where staff have landed in the fact that they don't want, not that they don't want to be a dementia-friendly organisation, but obviously we have limited resources at hand. So thank you. And I'll now I'll ask you to close debate if you'd like to, Councillor Bain. All right. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We now move to item 11.2, which is the notice of motion. The report. Delegates report that I have prepared. I will move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Selby. Attending country mayors. Well, 11.1. We've just, sorry, 11.1. Sorry, I crossed off your thing before getting to it. 11.1, notice of motion. Councillor Bain. A seconder. Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Bain, open debate.
Yeah, I became aware of this when one of the local government New South Wales board members resigned, and this is of great concern when councillors, we as councillors and council, pride ourselves on our integrity and our honesty, and yet unfortunately a superannuation scheme, which is the default scheme for our staff, for our workers, and potentially people sitting in this room, has been fined $10.5 million by the federal court due to what's called greenwashing, and specifically claims were made by Active Super at the time that they were environmentally and socially responsible investors. They did not invest in fossil fuels. They did not invest in gambling. They did not invest in post the invasion of Ukraine, that they had stopped all investment in Russia. And unfortunately, now, that's they promoted that widely, and that may have led some people to make the decision that they wanted to invest their superannuation with them because they felt that they were environmentally and socially responsible. But at the same time, they were investing in Star Casino, Whitehaven Coal, and Russian Oil Company. So they misled the public. They openly misled the public, and I think we can't just let that go unacknowledged. So the recommendation is that we, firstly, that we note that local government New South Wales is a major shareholder. There are 8 shares in Active Super, which is now morphed into Vision Super. And out of the 8 shareholders, the local government New South Wales owns 4 shares. I believe the United Services Union, which is also the union of our workforce, owns shares as well, and shares belong to the Engineering Association, and there's one other I'm not sure about. So the federal court found that they've engaged in deceptive and misleading conduct, and a $10.5 million penalty. So what I'm asking our council, my colleagues, to resolve is that we write to the President and the CEO of Local Government New South Wales and ask that they publish a full written apology and explanation in their Local Government New South Wales emails, that they review the newly merged Vision Super's status as the preferred super fund, and they can outline the steps taken to make sure that such a situation doesn't occur again, and that we make sure that there is honesty in the advertising and integrity in the operation of our workers' superannuation fund. Thank you.
Do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, please. So my understanding, so this is the superannuation of choice and recommended to all local government employees, so council staffs. Yeah.
I believe that it's the default superannuation fund.
Okay. And they've been fined $10 million. Do we know, does this have to be paid for by employee contribution fund, by the super funds? So therefore, does it have to be paid by the super funds? Yeah.
Mr. Thorogood.
Yep.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's complicated how they actually get paid. So on the
So
surface of it,
the fine?
correct.
Yeah.
So on the surface of it, all super funds are a trust and they have a trustee company around them, and that company needs to carry insurance. And the general principle is members' funds can generally not be accessed to pay a fine which is imposed by the fund. In this case, that would have restricted the amount of the fine to being less than what the court wanted to impose. And there's a press release that has the exact details in it. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. But so in this case, the court gave special permission that the portion of the fine which is not covered by the insurance carried by the trustee may be recovered from members. It adds up to around about $20 per member that will be recovered from members' funds to cover the excess of that fine. And the excess predominantly occurs because the insurance payment to the trustee is treated as a capital gains event and income tax has to be paid on the insurance payment. Happy to share, there's a press release that has the details in there about the actual impacts that I'm happy to share with councillors.
So $20. Principle of the matter is, have members been notified? Do you know that do you know that your superannuation fund has been fined for quite a serious offence, greenwashing the funds that you think you're being invested in, and it's going to cost you $20 each? Have they notified and given you apologies?
Through you, Madam.
And an insurance that it won't happen again?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the reason I'm aware of those figures is because as a member of the fund, I received notification from the fund about the event, yes.
Okay, yeah. I'd be pretty scathing if I was a member of that fund. That's pretty unacceptable, I think.
Is there any further questions?
Another thing, in your sorry, in that letter there, is there anything about that? Like, not just the local government New South Wales published this apology, but in cooperation with the Active Super Fund itself. They should also be party to publishing that apology. They have let their members down significantly, not just the local government part of that, but the Superannuation Board itself significantly let down its members. So is that included in there?
Councillor Bain?
No, it's not included in that because my thinking of it was that we members of local government New South Wales, so we share that responsibility. But if we wanted to widen it, I'm happy to accept any amendments if you have an amendment that you'd like to widen it.
No.
Councillor Pakes?
Yeah, my question is a logistical one. So one of these new apprentices or trainees or someone who comes and works for Kempsey Shire Council, what does council do to direct or instruct them to go towards this super provider? Does council make any representations in that regard?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, like every other employer, when you join our organisation, you receive a super choice form that you need to fill out with your choice of super fund. One of the check boxes on that is to let my employer select the fund, in which case this is the fund that is selected by local government.
And supplementary to that, is there any other options that are available to Kempsey Shire Council in that regard? Is there other people that could do the same thing, or?
Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I think we would need to seek advice before we were to make any, I guess, we're not financial advisors. We can't sort of tell employees which way to go. I'd certainly be reluctant to make recommendations as an employer to employees about what funds they should be putting their super into. That's not really our place. If you were to say, should we change our default fund? I think we'd need to seek advice on that before we committed to whether we could or could not change the default fund.
Sorry.
Bless you.
I'm sorry. I have actually thought of adding something to there, if I may, because I wasn't thinking. Can we just add number 4 to that? Is that request Active or Vision Super to also publish an apology in the local government New South Wales email circular? They're the ones that have done the damage. Oh, sorry. That we add number 4 there, that Active or Vision also publish an apology in that circular because they're the ones that have committed the offence. So it's probably request that active, request that active/vision super also provide an apology to be published in the Local Government New South Wales email circular.
So could I just help with some wording there? So revolves to write to the President and CEO of Local Government New South Wales, comma, and active super?
No, so the President can still write the letter, that they can request, and then they can request that super also put that letter, also put that apology in there. Or do you think it should be? I'm wanting to see a public apology in that same newsletter. How that occurs, whether we say something that says that the President of Local Government New South Wales also ask that active super, vision super publish an apology. But I'm not saying that we need to write to the Superannuation Board. No.
Are you happy with that amendment, Councillor Bain?
Yeah, we see the words up there, but I think I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just for clarification, as part of the court proceedings, Active Super has already been required to send a notice to all members of the scheme as at 20th of June 2024 to publish on 4 of their different web pages a notice and keep that there for 6 months from the date of the order. And that needs to have a picture tile and a heading that says notification of misconduct by Active Super. So those requirements are already part of the judgment from the court. I don't know if that helps inform you or not.
Are you satisfied with that?
I am satisfied with that. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll leave the 0.4 off. Sorry, Talia. No more questions, councillors. Would you like to close debate, Councillor Bain?
I would like to close debate. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Thorogood, for that clarification on the insurance and the fine and the quantum. And I'd just like to make the point that the quantum of the fine that the court imposed reflects the severity of the misconduct. And if, it's not about whether people invest in coal or whatever. It's just, if you're investing in coal, just be honest about it and don't say that you're not. Do what you say you can do. And that reflects the integrity of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. I now move to item 11.2, which I am moving and Councillor Selby seconding, which is my delegates report from country mayors. I attend country mayors along with their general manager or whoever likes to keep the seat warm at the moment. And those events are mostly in Sydney and Parliament House. This recent country mayors was focused around financial sustainability, which as a council we're actually quite well versed in terms of SRVs. It was interesting to hear from Shoalhaven around their special rate variation and have presentations from IPART, the Auditor General, from T Corp, and from the Honourable Emily Saval around the parliamentary inquiry. To be honest, a lot of the presentations we were quite well versed in, but it was good to see that there were some changes being made, and myself and Mr. Jackson also took advantage of being there the Thursday before to meet with Minister Atchison around some of our roads issues, which was a quite fruitful meeting. The next Country Mayors is in May, and that's a very rural and regional focus with the JO coming together as well. And we'll also take advantage to kind of advocate as a region on that occasion. It's really important for country mayors to get together, and we've seen that there's been a really big growth in the actual country members membership in the last few years. So originally it had quite a small membership base, and now it's quite large with I think up to 100 and something members, and even with larger councils joining in as well. And I think the longer you become a councillor, the longer you realise that as a regional council, you have a lot more varying challenges from our metro counterparts, running our own sewer and water and having quite a large geographical disperse, which means we are responsible for a lot more roads and different things like that. So it's really good to network with some of our neighbours and to come together to advocate for what we need as regional councils. I am a lover of living in regional Australia, and I think council play an integral role in the wellbeing of our communities. So coming together with my fellow country mayors to advocate is a really important thing to do. So I hope that you enjoyed my report. Any questions? Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, please. Just the questions on the briefing from Penny Sharp. So there's a comment there about upcoming support for heritage asset protection for rural councils. Did she give any indication of what that might look like?
I'll take that on notice.
Yeah. And whether she means like locally or regionally significant heritage, which is put in our local environment plan, or state heritage registered properties. But I am pretty much, I'm interested in that. If you can find out that at some point in time.
It was very vague.
Vague. Okay.
Yeah.
And one other question is: Does Kempsey Shire Council still have access to a heritage officer?
Yes, we do.
Is it a funded position, or is it sort of on an as needed basis?
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. It's predominantly funded. I believe there's some council cost worn there, but there is a grant associated which provides us with access to a heritage advisor. So they're on a contract basis and they come in on a regular basis or as required.
Yeah, it's not a staff member, and it's shared, isn't it?
We have a contract of our own, so
okay.
They may or may not work for other councils, but they work for us on our terms.
Thank you.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, for the email you sent through with the PowerPoints regarding specifically around the 17 key recommendations from the ability for local government to fund infrastructure and services. That wasn't part of those the slides you sent. I'm really keen to see what they are. If you could tell us about that or forward us the slides for that one, please.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. The document's a parliamentary inquiry document, so it's available, and I believe it may have already been forwarded to councillors in the past, but we can certainly reissue that.
Yes, so that's the document we
made submissions to it. Yeah, we've already. Yeah.
Stephen Mitchell circulated that document.
Correct.
So that's all currently in front of us. Yeah.
Awesome. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, you met with Rose Minister. How did you find our minister, and was she keen on Kempsey?
I've actually had a lot of correspondence with her already, so it was nice to finally put a face to the name, so to speak. In terms of a meeting, we probably had a little bit more of a regional focus between us and Port Macquarie Hastings, but she was very keen to help us solve some of the issues at hand.
Thank you.
Councillor Selby.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I heard that she's been up here already, the roads minister.
She has not been to Kempsey itself. We did try and tee up a meeting. Unfortunately, it got moved, but she has been around, particularly the Deervale Road up in Nambucca, and she did previously get around to Toos Road.
So she's going to come around here, or she's already been?
She has already been, and there is an invitation sitting with her at the moment from myself that whenever she is around, that it would be great for her to come and meet with us.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'll close debate. Put the motion. Any dissent? There is none. I declare it carried. 11.3. Councillor Coburn, would you like to move that? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bain. Councillor Coburn, would you like to open debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of me putting this notice of motion forward was around expenditure on Crown land. I guess for most of us councillors, a lot of things that are identified as spends out of the Crown land reserve, which is held in the general fund, is stated in already adopted plans, either concept plans or master plans. Now, I understand that obviously we need those concept plans and master plans to be able to carry out work, plan for work, and apply for grant funding. The main issue that came into that I noticed, and I thought this would benefit all councillors, is that none of it's actually quantified. So if we use, for example, the tiny homes that were installed in Horseshoe Bay recently, it just sits as a line in the operational plan. So it doesn't give us any insight into how those numbers were got to, where the plan was actually instigated from, what the planning behind that was. So what I'm requesting is that we actually get a briefing from council that explains to us how these plans becoming into our operational plan, how they're actually put together. I believe that for councillors and the community to be able to have full transparency in that process would be beneficial for all of us, particularly in light of this particular strategy in the long-term financial plan. Says clearly defined and agreed vision that enables the vision of the community strategic plan to be delivered while maintaining financial sustainability and infrastructure assets over the medium to long term, and reduce or eliminate the infrastructure backlog. And a key component to this is ensuring that council is not creating more assets without undergoing a stringent process of financial investigation, including full costing, funding sources, and intergenerational cost impact. That, for me, is the statement that really sums up my motivation for putting forward the request for a briefing on this topic. I believe for us to adequately be able to make decisions in this area, we really need to understand the actual project, how it's been formulated, and in particular, how it relates to community engagement. It's very important moving forward in the space of financial sustainability that we have real clarity for the community around what's being spent, why it's being spent, and when it's going to be spent. In particular in this area, because the reserve is actually profit that is held by council out of Crown land, out of particularly the holiday parks. I think it's particularly important that we do understand exactly how that profit is going to actually look when it comes out onto the ground, and have a complete picture. So it's very succinct, it's quite short. Basically, what I'm asking is that we get a briefing on the plans that council are putting into motion so we can understand how they fit into the long-term financial plan and how they fit in those line items within the operational plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Do we have any questions, Councillor Bain?
Yeah, I'm just thinking within the next couple of months might be, I'm not sure how difficult that'll be for staff with the IP&R documentation. So would it be useful to say July to identify which month that we wanted the briefing? Just a question on capacity.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. There's already a briefing planned for the 7th of May on the topic of the holiday parks. And I guess to address the other issues, the plans for the holiday parks are adopted master plans, which have been through previous iterations of council and have been through consultation processes, etc. So essentially all of those plans are there. It's only the implementation strategy that's really the missing piece of the puzzle, which is obviously budget related and is put through as a series of projects year to year or through a program. So that certainly will be covered in the briefing set for the 7th of May.
Councillor Bain, then Councillor Wyatt, then Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, my question is that will that briefing address the background and purpose that Councillor Coburn has put into this notice of motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it will certainly go a long way to. Obviously, we'll we'll go as far as we can on that. The planning around the implementation over the long-term financial plan and other ways that the Crown Reserve funds can be used is obviously a little complex in that it gets into operational funds where we're substituting more general funds and Crown lands related money in accordance with the terms that we're able to. But certainly we'll be looking at the overall program of works across the holiday parks and more broadly how that fund is used.
Councillor Wyatt.
Either in the briefing or you can answer now. Do you have a separate cost centre for the reserves on the category? So you've got general use parks, natural area and sports grounds. Do you sort of have separate cost centres for each of those? Are we able to see the revenue generated against those and the expenditure on them?
We'll probably take that one on notice, Madam Mayor.
Can you just include that in the briefing?
Can attempt to. Yep.
Councillor Peggs.
Yeah. Can I ask a question of Councillor Coburn?
She's just not at liberty to answer.
Yeah, I'd actually like the scope improved, widened a little bit, like what Councillor White has suggested, because of the use of Crown lands being running over different parts of the organisation, whether it be sports grounds or other unknown uses or unknown parcels of land, and it is a large cost centre in our budgets going forward. And the more we understand it, the better decision making we can make on it. And we've got a great example of Crescent Head. That's, as far as I understand, is that Crown Reserve out there? Yep. So we've got an example that doesn't have a master plan that's got money being spent on it, and it's external of us. So I haven't seen that before in council. So I think I would like it broadened to include Crown lands generally, not just the holiday parks, but Crown lands generally. Is that possible?
Jackson?
Yeah, I think at this point in time, that's probably we just need to look at our time allocations. We're trying to get through a program of briefings on a number of topics. We can certainly take that on notice and look to schedule a future briefing that covers the entire scope of Crown lands. But I don't believe we're going to be able to get through details of all of the plans in the individual holiday parks, the long-term planning, the finances around that within an appropriate time frame. We have other topics also that night, so other than cancelling that and running a single topic, I just don't think it's feasible to put that into the one report. We can certainly take it on notice and plan a future briefing which covers a wider scope, as you suggest.
Yeah, and probably back to Councillor Coburn, I would like that to be the motion, so as we are briefed and we can make decisions on 4-year plans based on the right information, and being fully informed, because at the moment I actually don't think we're in that position to be able to do that. So yeah, I commend you for the motion. Would you accept my?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to make that changes. I have been very conscious of staff being highly tasked at the moment, trying to get this suite of documents together. But I believe that information from that Crown land would be of high value to the councillors and to the community as well, because they don't think they have any real understanding about the Crown Land Reserve and how that's managed.
Just with the staff comment and the way process works, if we do want a briefing, we actually don't need a notice of motion, and if we do want to have a briefing on that, we actually could wait till maybe just later in the year, not within the next couple of, like, this has a time thing on it. It's very specific to that and what you want. Not that it isn't a separate issue, but it is adjacent to this, and it's adding significant work to an already packed schedule, given that it's got the next couple of months in it. Would you be amenable to a different solution than adding it as an amendment? Is there a different solution that we could come to?
Yeah,
Mr.
absolutely.
Jackson?
Through you, Madam Mayor, you're absolutely right. There's no call to, you don't need to have a motion to get a briefing on topics, but we will need to look at how we can actually prepare such a comprehensive and wide-ranging briefing. And I don't think it's feasible to get it done by the 7th of May covering all of those additional topics. So we are going to have to look at how long that's going to take and schedule it in for later. But certainly we can add it to the list and prioritise it.
So if that's the case, I would be happy to make the amendment, Councillor Coburn's first point, before we make decisions on the holiday parks going forward, and then the second point being a briefing on the broader Crown lands management and how they're funded, etc., as a later meeting. So as you suggested, Madam Mayor, let's have a briefing later in the year, possibly not too far. But the point is that we're actually making decisions based on incomplete information that we're not briefed on that whole Crown's lands. Today's a great example. We were not briefed on how funding can come about on a Crown lands area. Like, we didn't know about it until today. And yeah, I'm only asking for the information. So,
are you happy for that to be a point too, Councillor Coburn?
Look, I'll make a point here. This is not the original notice of motion that I put forward, as you're probably all aware. Now, I made the changes to this notice of motion on advice from staff in relation to the high volume of work that was being done. At no time did anyone come back to me and say to me that this wasn't required to be a notice of motion. So it has put me on the spot a little bit, because no staff member has sort of come back to me and said, Julie, you don't need to do this. The reason that I wanted to put it through as a notice of motion is because I want it on public record. I want to have a conversation and information provided not only to council staff and to councillors, but to the wider general public. So my intention at this point, if this notice of motion wasn't even required, how do I request for future reference a briefing to be made on topics where I can get support from the other councillors?
I'm sure you could send an email. Or is there another mechanism? Through the portal, there's a lot of different mechanisms. In a meeting where we're talking about something that you have a bit of interest in and want more knowledge in, and if you do have also specific knowledge on particular strategies, plans, the SRV staff have always made themselves available to you if you had specific questions on those as well. Staff are very available to councillors. They answer a lot of questions, do a lot of different things. I at no point have ever found them to be combative on giving information, only that there is a massive program of work and a lot of time that they have to get through. But Mr. Jackson, I don't know if you have another.
No, just following on, Madam Mayor, certainly if a councillor is seeking a briefing on any topic, that can be raised directly with the General Manager or directors, or sent through the portal. And, you know, if we do have a number of items and a limited program, obviously we're trying to get through a lot of work simply with this IPNR topics. However, we are running a forward schedule of briefings and looking in, and if we feel that it's a very singular topic that, you know, may not be of interest to the wider group, we might put that back to you and ask you to confer with your colleagues if they feel that's a really something they're all interested in. Otherwise, we'd be more than happy to put something on the program. It's just a matter of fitting in time. So I suspect we're going to have to start adding in additional briefing sessions just because of the number of topics that councillors want to look at. So as long as everybody's okay, we're okay to do it. But there'll be a few more Wednesday nights or other timeframes required to get through this many briefings, this many topics. They're not saying any of them aren't valid. It's just purely a logistical thing. We need time to A, prepare the briefings, and B, deliver the briefings to you. We need your time.
Councillor Bain.
Yeah, this is the question. Is there a benefit in putting it up? I'm hearing that we don't have to put it up as a notice of motion, but is there a benefit in putting it up as a notice of motion? Because one, it brings public attention, and two, it becomes part of the actions list that has been resolved by council. So yeah, is the benefit to doing that above just saying, hey, can we have a briefing?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Essentially, as you say, it's whether you want public awareness of the question you're asking or the response you're going for. So, as I say, strictly, it's not required, but we understood that Councillor Coburn wanted to put this as a public issue. So therefore she has, and it's being spoken of and considered. So it's not a bad thing to put it up. It's just it doesn't have to be done. But if it's there for whatever purpose you may wish to have with your constituents, then that's also perfectly acceptable.
Probably draw the same parallel between a question but through the portal or a question on notice. A question on notice goes in the business paper. The portal, you're just asking for your own private means or whatever. Councillor Wyatt.
May I ask, Councillor Coburn, what was your original recommendations? What were the two, 3, 4, 5 points of your original?
My original, let me just open it up here.
So that's the first question. And the second question is, oh no, answer that first.
So originally my recommendation was that council provide a full budget for any works to be completed on council managed Crown land that are greater than $50,000, excluding routine maintenance, except those that are given to external contractors. 2, that have not been fully disclosed in existing plans and strategies. And point 2, that provides a full business project management plan with the budget for creation of new assets. That's what I was originally asking for. As far as the timing of putting a notice of motion up, I think it's imperative for council to have this information at their fingertips. There are line items within the operational plan that clearly point to expenditure within this area. Now, looking at something that's just put into, you say that the master plans have all been approved. My understanding that the thing that was approved was concept plans for the holiday parks. And it's important that we understand exactly what we are agreeing to. The concept plans for some of the holiday parks were not widely supported by the community, but they were still approved through the council process. But there was a clear indication during the discussions around those concept plans in particular that there was a lot of community feedback that didn't agree with the plans that council had. We weren't a part of that process, and I respect that. But for councillors moving forward, I believe it should be transparent information, and I believe the community has a right to know that information.
Councillor Bakes.
Yeah, my question is what was the basis of that not being accepted? Because that feels like financial responsibility in spending money on Crown lands. What was the reason that was not accepted at the ELT level?
Mr. Jackson.
Perhaps if the council can rule up, I think the first point was around providing councillors with details of every project over $50,000. That's already in the operational plan. Every project capital works program over $50,000 is listed in the operational plan. The point of providing highly detailed business cases, etc., they're simply not done. As we discussed, we create line items and then the project is further developed into detail once the budget is approved so that we actually know that we're going to proceed with the project. And then, sorry, the third point. Sorry, councillor. So essentially, most of the items in there were either already in play or were not practical to put in a response.
So I take your point that they are in the draft operational plan at this point for what we're talking about today, but the planning is what exactly I think this is aimed at, is that the planning occurs before at least to some extent. So there is some sort of budgetary responsibility that projects don't blow out or we can't deliver because there's not enough money in the budgeted amount. And you don't find that out until you spend a little bit of money on planning. Like to me, that feels like the objective of financial sustainability around the motion. To me, that's where I see it.
Can I suggest we probably need a briefing regarding the project management framework and how things work? Because obviously if we commit funds upfront on every project that may or may not proceed, council has to agree to essentially write off capital investment in projects that aren't going to proceed. So we have a process, we follow that process. We can't do all of the investigative work up front because it does add up to a significant number if you investigate every single project to the level you're suggesting. So we can give a briefing on that topic as well. That's fine.
I think specifically to Crown Lands, where there is a significant capital in the 10-year plan, there is significant capital going into those places. Like, it's huge. Absolutely, we need to know what we're spending and how long the return on investment is. And those, like, to me, you don't build anything until you've got a plan. So that's I actually support the original motion, as in it was put. I didn't realise it was changed until I just looked at it then. So I support the original motion previous to my amendment.
Sorry, Councillor Pakes. I'm going to have to take that as a speech. Councillor Wyatt.
I was just a question, procedural kind of question. Can Councillor Coburn work with whomever's going to give this briefing so that she can input into what she would like in that briefing?
Mr. Jackson.
If Councillor Coburn would like to provide any further information as to what she's aiming to see, we can certainly look at that. But in terms of sort of sitting down with staff and sort of, on the keyboard, probably not. But certainly if you've got any further feedback as to what specific targets you want or any expansion on that through notes, by all means, please send them through.
Councillor Wyatt.
And I was actually going to ask a question about project management. So at some point in the future, a briefing would be good, because I actually have questions with that around the risk management framework, the stakeholder consultation, the evaluation component of that. So yeah, I would really like to have a briefing on project management and also what level, what type of plans and where that is. So that's really good. And just one other question. I asked a question before about different categories having cost centres, and it's probably more in relation to the second briefing. Is it possible for that briefing to have a list of what is that revenue expenditure against each of those categories for that second briefing?
Mr. Jackson.
Certainly we can undertake to do some investigation in that area. As I say, it's a complex area, but there will be a lot of sites and a lot of different expenditure going on, but certainly we'll do our best to pull that together.
Is there any more questions? No. You have a question? And if it's not a question, I will ask you to cannot continue speaking.
Through you, Madam Mayor, our new CEO may find benefit in this. Would you suggest that the second briefing may be useful to the new CEO, given he will be absolutely new in the area?
I would hope that the new CEO, and I am very, very sure the new CEO, will be taking in a whole breadth of knowledge across the organisation, from Crown Land Management, from financial sustainability to our new IPNR suite. I don't think that I don't think any information is not important to him. Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Bain. Is there any speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Coburn, would you like to close debate?
Yes, I would. I would like, obviously I've now had it confirmed that we are going to have the briefing on the holiday parks. That may well trigger another notice of motion from me once I get that information. I just wanted, as I said, for it to be publicly on record that we are going to have a discussion and that council is going to provide us with more information to give us more focus and information on our decision making, in specifically around financial sustainability, so that we can see what council's plans look like in their entirety. And as I said, I think it's very important that we do understand what it is we're agreeing to. So I thank staff for putting that briefing together for us, and I agree we should have future briefings that are broader in their nature and tie in probably directly with that project management. so that we can understand how these projects are being delivered by council, and so that the community can feel that we are listening to them and acting on their behalf, and making, as I said, good financial decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. That concludes. Do you need to read out confidential? That concludes our open business. We now need to just have a reading of our confidential matters, which were passed by exception.
So in relation to item 12.1 legal matters, council resolved that council receives and notes the report. In relation to item 12.2 audit risk and improvement committee February 2025 meeting minutes and annual ARIC and internal audit performance report to council, council resolved that council notes the draft meeting minutes of the audit risk and improvement committee 5th of February 2025 and annual audit risk and improvement committee and internal audit performance report for 2024, and that council endorses the strategic ARIC and internal audit work plan 2024 to 2028, includes the 2024-25 audit plan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Thorogood. That concludes our business for today. I thank councillors for their engagement on the important suite of IP&R documents, and I wish everyone a very safe and happy Easter, or a very safe and happy long weekend.